we live? Are we live? I think we live, G. Hopefully this doesn't lag too bad. We're gonna see. What's going on, everybody? I'm President Hotep Doobs, here with another Hotep History Live. Tonight rather, I wanted to respond or react to some of the things that I see on YouTube as it pertains to Hotep. Like, I've noticed that there's like this large misconception, and it's funny because when you actually look at certain origins as it pertains to Hotep, this is actually not necessarily a misconception. This is what people have been thinking for quite some time now. I want to say at least a decade and some change. And one thing that I've noticed is how people have this view of what Hotep is. Like, let's just be honest. The origins of how we even got to this point, me, Ali, or Hotep Jesus, Uncle Hotep, shout out to my guys, shout out to Hotep Nation. We got here because in the early 2010s, I want to say like 2013, 2014, things of that nature, the pejorative of Hotep grew in prominence. And essentially, it was what you see here, right? It's what you see on when you even search the word Hotep. You have this guy, and I've actually seen his videos before, so I'm actually interested in seeing what he has to say about Hotep. But even this guy right here, when it came to the root, we was speaking against the root for years at this point. Like, we've been against the type of publication that they've been pushing for Black America for a while now. It's very pandery. The content is fruitless. It lacks substance. It lacks what you actually are looking for when it comes to Black publications. But they do their thing over there. But for years, people have been using the word Hotep as a pejorative, as a slur, as an insult. And it started when it came down to like our apprehension to Black Lives Matter as it grew in prominence and as it grew in popularity. We started to see just inconsistencies and contradictions within the so-called movement that pushed us to like be a lot more openly skeptical about it. And then it was boosted and proliferated by the fact that Darren Seals at the time, who was on the ground in Ferguson when Michael Brown's shooting happened, he talked about how these specific bad actors that would, go on to be, Black Lives Matter, co-opted his movement, his grassroots movement in Ferguson. So he was already, politically active. He was already in the neighborhoods. He was already in the communities doing his work. As a matter of fact, I want to say that we can actually look it up, but I want to say he actually galvanized thousands of former Black former Democrats in Ferguson to switch over to the Republican Party because he did not like the response that Barack Obama and other Democrats, local Democrats, responded to police violence and other things going on in Ferguson before Michael Brown was killed. So when it came to Darren Seals and his interfacing with the likes of like D-Ray, you dig what I'm saying, and people in Black Lives Matter, he spoke out against them. He spoke out on how they were co-opting his movement, how they came out there to pretty much take the spotlight off their actual on the ground grassroots issues and replacing it with other social issues that had nothing to do with them. You saw, if you were paying attention, that is, you saw D-Ray McKesson essentially sell out almost immediately. It seemed like he was actually sent by the machine. You know, people already know, as far as the history of D. Ray McKesson, that he was funded by George Soros. And when it came down to the way that they behaved in Ferguson, he peeped it immediately, because he was an actual grassroots activist. And after that interfacing, after him exposing D. Ray and Black Lives Matter and what they were doing in Ferguson, not too long after that, Darren Seals was not only followed by the local police and the FBI, he ended up dead, burnt alive in his car, shot and then burnt alive in his car. So you've had men and women who were going against the mainstream for a very long time now. And this, as somebody who's an historian, this goes back, generations, but we'll get to that in a second. So all throughout this time, whenever somebody were to speak out against Black Lives Matter and reinstitute or try to restore particular historical and traditional values that were more Afrocentric, centralized around Black culture, etc., those people were called Hotep. This Hotep ass nigga, or this Hotep, way of thinking and all of this other stuff. So it was used as a slur. So I'm seeing this. My man HJ is seeing this. Uncle Hotep is seeing this. And at that time, he was Handy Mayhem. That was his, screen name. We're seeing all of this. And we're three different black men from three different places in America, three different generations, and we're all seeing the same things. So we're coming to some of these similar conclusions, like, we need to be looking at D-Ray and what his actual intentions are. We need to be looking at Black Lives Matter and see what they're actually talking about. So one of the major things that happened it was a few major things that happened, but one of the first major things that happened was that on Black Lives Matter's website, they spoke specifically about their aims, their mission statement, etc. And inside of their mission statement, they said to pretty much give agency or help or, backing of the Black family. And the way that they broke it down and described it was the Black mother, the Black child, and the Black parent. They explicitly excluded Black men from their plight. And that is because, and it's not necessarily to disparage other groups, but it was to make sure that something that they call now heteronormalcy was not put to the forefront to Black American liberation in the 21st century. And that meant excluding the straight Black men for a specific reason, because at that point you have to understand just the makeups of things. You're going to have, they're looking for empathy. They're looking for the ability to tap into your emotional state. They're not engaging your intellect. They're not engaging your logic. They're engaging your emotion. And the most emotional among us, not to say that men are not emotional, but the most emotional among us are our women and children. The empathy, the sympathy, the ability to be able to, feel for the next person is inherent in our women and our children. That's a fact. And one of the things that are inherent for straight Black men is to provide that structure, is to provide that order, is to provide that discipline, is to be able to steer the Black family in the right direction. That also entails having emotional intelligence. Of course, you being there for your children, you being there for your wife, and being there emotionally, not just physically, right? So that's important. However, it's easier to just outright exclude or extract the discipline, the order, the structure, and all of the other things that straight Black men bring to the table as far as the Black American community, the Black American household, and the Black American family overall. It's easy to exclude that because we are not focused on the side of Black American liberation that pertains to discipline, being able to adhere to routine, being able to adhere to your morals, values, and principles in a way that can't be swayed by emotion, that can't be swayed by somebody's compelling argument. And what happened is that once you start to exclude that level of stoicism, that level of logic, and being able to apply it to these really serious issues, you are only left with the emotion. You're only left with how you feel, not what you think, not what you're going to do, but how you feel about the situation. And we know, as as it pertains to the mainstream media, they're only going after how you feel. They don't care about what you think. They don't care about how you think. They don't care about what you do. They only care about being able to create, curate, and be able to manufacture and monitor how you feel about something. Because as long as they're able to dictate how you feel about something, they dictate how you think about something and what you do about it. That's how it works. So as long as we're pulling at your heartstrings and being able to, create a narrative that allows you to feel a particular way, we can use that emotional state to our advantage. And that's what Black Lives Matter were doing. That's what Hotep, before we, took on the name, people like us, that's what we were pointing out. And the people in response who are heavily, even to this day, in their feelings, responded with insults, responded with ad hominem, responded with not with bad faith argument, straw man arguments, things like that. So just for a shorthand, just to be able to use it as a way to give a label and use that label as a means to dismiss whatever that person is saying, they chose Hotep. I find that saddeningly ironic, because Hotep obviously is an ancient African word, many definitions, but one of the main definitions is peace. Shaka Atmos, he says, satisfaction. There's an entire, lexicon surrounded by the word Hotep that's always been benevolent, has always been positive, and has always been created or used in a way to be able to show love, respect, and peace to somebody that you have love, respect, and, peace for. So to see it used not by white people, not by Asian people, not by non-black people at all, but black people, specifically Black American people, as a way to discredit, dismiss, and disregard somebody of their own ilk was very disheartening to see. As a black man who wants to see other black people disparaging their own people based upon ideologies and traditionalism that has carried our entire people for generations. And I'm talking about centuries at this point. So for me, I felt like that was doing a disservice. And at the same time, I was growing more and more into solution-based realities, to where I truly believe that one of the larger problems, and I know a lot of like your gurus back in the day used to say this, but the way you look at the world is entirely dependent upon your mindset and the things that you expect out of yourself, out of the people that you care about and trust, and out of the world in general. You have people who are what they call black pilled, right? They're doom and gloom, and you'll even have some sophisticated black pill people who, based upon their intellect, believe that, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. And you have people on the opposite side of that spectrum, or people who are called white pilled, who look at this as the most opportunistic, the most optimistic time in human, history, based upon all of the things that we have at our disposal and resources that we can use to be able to create a better life, a better life for ourselves. I want to say, just standing in the middle, that is always going to be gray. That's what nuance is. It's not black and white all of the time. However, when you are dealing with a mindset to where everything that you're looking at has a potential downfall, has a potential negative outcome, has a potential detriment to you, and then you hyperfixate on those things, you are automatically going to manifest more of that, of what you think of. It is what it is. That's just human nature. So the more you manifest these types of negative interactions, negative outcomes, et cetera, you're going to get more of it. And for me, I didn't appreciate the way especially this is what my early 20s, I didn't appreciate the way that the media treated Black American sentiment. And then that made me go into the solutions. And that's where I found the Black conscious community. You dig what I'm saying? Shout out to Sa Netta and all of the guys that came through that YouTube channel that I learned from. You dig what I'm saying? I was just on a space with Dr. Inky. I love that he's Hotep adjacent. I know he's Hotep full-blooded Hotep, but as far as Hotep Nation is concerned, I'm glad that we have Dr. Inky as an ally, as well as Shaka Atmos. You dig what I'm saying? So I, essentially started to gain all of this different knowledge from these different Black men and women. And based upon the logic, the information, and what you can do to apply it to your life directly right now, that's what grabbed me. It wasn't so much the emotion. It wasn't, the narrative so much, while important. It was exactly what I can actually use this information. So for me, that is what really bred and sowed the seed of being a solutionary. Shout out to my man Maj Touré and Black Guns Matter. That's what got me into that mode. It's like, okay, Trayvon Martin was killed. Michael Brown was killed. And the media used those deaths as a way to not only, of course, enrich themselves, be able to line their pockets with all of the virality that came with these stories, the trial and all that other stuff. It's to the point now, they don't even call it the George Zimmerman trial. They call it the Trayvon Martin trial, which I find ironic as well. And, we can get into that at another time. So for me, I was like, okay, I'm angry as hell. I'm on my fuck whitey shit. White people are the problem, white supremacy, all of that other shit. And I started to see, like, yeah, that was one of the first introductions to me, building my following at this time. Because before this, I was just more of a mutuals guy, like my friends and, my friends' friends and, stuff like that. Like just vibing on the timeline, making jokes and stuff like that. But then Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown happens. I'm 23, 24 at the time. So I started to, really started to focus more on it. Now, all throughout my, adolescence and stuff like that, I've always had OGs who were Afrocentric. I tell people all the time, like, I grew up as a child working for Black businesses. I didn't work for, chains and stuff like that. I didn't get my first chain job until I was like 17. No, gotta be more than that. Older than that. Probably even a little bit older than that, but I worked at Dollar Tree for a little bit. But as a youngin', my first job was playing the drums in the church, Black church, 8 years old, making my little, so I was a kid. So, just $5 to go to the store is all I needed, and I was fine. And then I was 13 and I lived in Providence, Rhode Island, and I worked at this Black-owned clothing store called Count Your Blessings. And shout out to Hev. He taught me a lot. He taught me so much, like values and morals, lessons, and so many different things that I still hold to this day, 20 years later. So when it comes to my first, foray into what, business is, or what, being your own boss or being employed, it came from Black economics. He taught me a lot. I got the job. I forced him to give me the job. It's a long story. I've talked about it, so many different times on different podcasts, people who've had me on their podcasts and stuff like that. But essentially, I was 13. He didn't want to give me a job. I forced him to give me the job. And then I showed myself worthy after he gave me the job. And by the time I was 15, I know there's a couple people that's going to watch this and laugh when they hear this part. But by the time I was 15, I had a key to the store. So while he was out doing, getting clothes from New York City and all of that other stuff, I would literally wake up, wait for my mom to go to work, and then go to work myself and literally open up an entire brick and mortar store at 15 years old. That's like facts. So with that, I've always had that type of, solutionary, Afrocentric, Hotep adjacent type of lifestyle based upon the people in places that I gravitated towards in my youth. However, Now we're in 2013, 2014, and things are picking up steam online. This is some of the times, this is one of the, early stages of actually like news headlines being broke from Twitter. Like I remember the footage of the Michael Brown situation, from the corner store to his apartment complex and all of that. I remember Trayvon Martin and that coverage that they had, and there's a lot of on the ground people tweeting and stuff like that, and that was used in news. So Twitter was very, very heavily involved in these stories. So of course that gets me involved because I'm on Twitter, and like I said, I'm angry. I'm blaming white people for everything. And don't get me wrong, white people have some blame and shit like that. But for the most part, I was more so focused on what I could do eventually. After I got angry, I realized how angry I was. I was, tweeting angrily all of the time, blaming white people all of the time, blaming external issues. Not even just blaming white people. I was blaming the external more than I ever looked into the internal at all. You know what I'm saying? So after maybe 6 months, a year of me just like being angry and shit like that, I was like, yo, dog, like, what can we actually do? What can we actually get done to be able to alleviate the issues that we have? And that's when I got into, different solution-based people, Claude Anderson, like I said, the conscious community, and getting all of these different, references of what can be done as it pertains to health, wealth, prosperity, politics, culture, etc., diet, you name it. I was looking into all of the things that you can do. As stereotypical as it is, of course, I went vegan for some years. I haven't eaten chicken since 2014. You know what I'm saying? I've only eaten fish for, say, 4 or 5 years now. So, I swore off meat altogether and then got back on pescatarian time in like 2020, 2021, something like that. But yeah, so all of this is happening, and HJ, Handy Mayhem at the time, they're on the timeline that, they're talking this stuff, and Uncle Hotep, he's older, so he's been around longer to have seen things in the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that, and be able to give a perspective like, yo, this is eerily similar to some of the things that I've seen. And what really got him as an older guy was that I know what black liberation movements look like. I know what organic grassroots black liberation groups look like, at least for the context in which he lived as a youngster. And Black Lives Matter is not that. HJ, he was more on the logistical side. Like, he was one of the first people, if not the first person, to call out Shaun King for scamming Tamir Rice's family. Like, he went viral for that, I remember. So he's looking at it from the logistical side. And then me, I'm looking at it from the practical side. I'm looking at it from the perspective, though, I've been friends with all of you on Twitter for years. Me and you have engaged with each other, laughed with each other, joked with each other, all of that fire stuff. I've even gone out to your city and we've partied together. We kicked it together. We smoked together. We drank together. All of this fire shit. We've created these relationships and stuff. And now that the media is involved, like I said, the Trayvon Martin, the Michael Browns and stuff like that is happening on the timeline. And we're now being more socially aware. We're being more culturally aware, politically aware, et cetera, et cetera. When I am now, espousing these things that I'm getting from the conscious community, I'm espousing these things that I'm getting from what I didn't know then, but now I do know, black conservatives and stuff like that. Like, people are coming from different angles of it, but they're attacking it from a pragmatic standpoint. It's not idealistic. It's something that you can actually wake up and do on Monday morning to be able to enrich your life, to fortify yourself, defend yourself, and solve the issues that you have going on the individual level for your life. If you are and when you are successful at doing that, you're able to purport your life via social media and stuff like that about how better your life is now that you've implemented these solutions. With that, the people who fuck with you and rock with your message are going to start replicating and looking into the same things that you looked into. You dig what I'm saying? To be able to, find themselves in their solutionary state. My entire endeavor was to always purport a solutionary state, even if we disagree. Because what happens is, if we're only going to focus on surface level emotions that we have, we're never going to get to the nitty gritty, and we're for damn sure not going to get to the solutions. So my entire endeavor was to make sure that I created or facilitated an environment for the people that I've always been fucking with, that I'm kicking it with, drinking with, having fun with, joking with, even sometimes making money with, to be able to get with some of the things that you may not have known about. These are some random people from Harlem or congregated in Harlem to be able to speak about things that are necessarily culturally, socially, politically, economically taboo to the Black American mainstream. So because I look at myself as a conduit between that world and the world that is plagued with the issues that we're going through, this is my job. My job is to funnel this information as long as it's actually fruitful and helpful for the people that's listening. And I believe it did. And none of the things that I was saying was a net negative. Not one. Me telling you to be more financially literate. Me telling you to, monitor your diet. Me telling you to, work out and create standards for yourself, discipline for yourself, love yourself, all of these different things that I'm espousing. Now I'm espousing it in the Hotep Doobs way. So, I'm a little spicy with my rhetoric, but the tone of my rhetoric didn't change. So when it was time to joke and laugh about, let's just say something like, what's the best cereal? I had the same tone. You niggas don't know what the fuck you talking about. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the best motherfucking cereal out there, period. And my friends and the people that I engage with online would, of course, engage with that tweet in good faith. Like, oh, he's not literally cursing me out. He's not literally, insulting me. We're just having a fun debate. He's clearly passionate about how much he likes Cinnamon Toast Crunch. You know what I'm saying? So I use that same cadence, delivery, and tone when I was speaking about this shit. Now, of course, at first, it's introductory. So you want to be able to like, yo, I learned about plant-based diets. Yo, I learned about this workout regimen. Yo, I learned about these particular institutions that Black Americans have built historically that we can actually, get into, invest into. Yo, I've learned about these different concepts and ideas about how we can, unite and be able to enrich ourselves not only socially but economically and culturally and all of these different things. And I'm pronouncing it now. That is being met with either agreement or pushback to its varying degrees, which is fine. This is what I've welcomed since I was online. I've been online since I was 10 years old. And when I say online, because I've been online earlier than that. But as far as social media goes, shout out to all my late 80 babies, early 90s babies. Black Planet, Mi Gente, Asian Avenue, MySpace, as the years went on. Like, I've been on social media for a very long time. I've been on social media since essentially I was in elementary school. So I've been discoursing with human beings online for a very long time. So that type of discourse I wasn't a stranger to at all. So now I'm like, okay, based upon the people that agree, based upon the people that disagree, and the different pedigrees, the different ways of life, the different, outlooks on things. This person is a little bit more emotional. This person is a little bit more solution-based or logical. This person just likes to joke around, is not really serious about shit. So even if you are being serious, he's going to always be in your mentions with jokes and shit like that. Like, you start to gauge everybody's reactions because you've been, interacting with these people for some time at this point. At that point, now it's time for me to kick it up a notch. It's like, yo, y'all niggas is fucking got acne because y'all eating all of this motherfucking Or y'all motherfuckers is not, as rich as you need to be because you not doing And at that point, now the pushback becomes less of what we were used to, and now more of you just somebody that I don't really like. I don't fuck with that. I don't fuck with you. I don't like that at all. And I was like, shit. And real shit, yo, like, I lost friends. I lost genuine friends. People that, despite the disagreement and all of that other stuff that we had on the timeline that led to the fallout, have nothing negative to say about. I won't say their name out of respect and stuff like that, but there were men and women who were a part of my community prior to the Trayvon Martin, prior to Michael Brown, prior to third wave feminism gaining legs on the timeline. Prior to all of this shit, we was having a great time. You met me in real life. This is not some username. This is Doe. 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 And because I was progressing and growing into the solutionary that I am now, that was a problem because their outlook on life was, like, I'm having a great time when we kicking it and shit like that. But if we going to talk about the issues, if we going to talk about the problem, we not starting with me. We not starting with my behavior. We not starting with my habits. We not starting with my outlook. We not starting with my mindset. We not, starting with my body set. We not starting with none of that. We're going to start with the external. We're going to start with the police. We're going to start with white people. We're going to start with the government. We're going to start with the fucking boss that fired me. You know what I'm saying? Unrighteously and all this other shit. It's going to be all of these different things. We're going to blame my mama, my daddy, the neighborhood that I grew up in, the house that I grew up in, all of this. We have so many different external factors that we going to get to before we start talking about changing our diets and saving our money and doing better for ourselves and shit like that. Like, nah, we have way more blame to give. And what keeps the divide of the external versus the internal battle happening is because both things are true. Both things are true. There are things externally that has been done to Black America in general, but since, this is what I focus on Black America. Shout out to all my Americans out there, the real ones, you know what I'm saying, the actual true citizens. None of you illegals get love. Just keeping it 100. But if you somehow make it through the system and all of that other stuff, hey, I'm not ICE, so it is what it is. But anyway, I'm focusing on these things and I'm just like, like, it is true. The government has fucked over the American public, specifically the Black American public, for generations. Full stop. You'll never, I don't care how self-reliant, self-governing, self-sufficient, self-anything that I am, there will never be a time where Doe Doobs, Hotep president of Hotep Nation, will ever say, the government is not at fault. As a matter of fact, the government is more at fault than your white people thing. That's another debate for another time. It is what it is. However, the external is true. Whether it's Jim Crow laws, black codes, you name it. The different types of things that the government has done to impede on Black American achievement and Black American progress cannot be denied and should not be denied at any point. On top of that, not but on top of that, there is a point, not only one, there's a point in history where those things are less applicable to you, which is mainly the 21st century. Like after the year 2000, it's like you're going to have different pieces of legislation that we don't like, bailing out the banks and, all of that other stuff. But directly attacking Black America, not so much. Does it negatively affect Black America? 100%. But it also negatively affects white America, Asian America, immigrant Americans, whatever. So even if it's more disproportionately hurts black Americans, for sure, acknowledging that as well, you also have to factor in your responsibility in responding to that. I wrote this in my first book, Black America Inc. A $1 Trillion Nation. Black America as a population, not individual black people in America, but black America as a population, is not at fault at what happened to black America as far as the government is concerned, as far as the legislation that was passed down to impede on our achievement. But black America is responsible to making sure that black America is where it needs to be. And if that includes holding the government accountable and making sure they get the government off, the government off of our back, that's a part of it in responding. And so for me, the external versus the internal beef comes into play where you stop at the action and don't speak about the reaction. Shit, you don't even speak about the black involvement or black participation in the creating of the action. So one of the things that people don't acknowledge when it comes to this stuff is that after a certain point in American history, a lot of black people who were supposed to be our political representatives in Washington voted for these things. They supported these things, like the 1994 crime bill. As much as that, we kick Hillary's back in and Joe Biden's back in and Bill Clinton's back in for that legislation, which we should, you can't ignore the black caucus. The black congressional caucus was for that crime bill. They were for that. You've had historically black Americans who were for Jim Crow. I know that sounds crazy, but this is what happens when you take away, historically, this is what happens when you take away the autonomy of people based upon the way you view another set of people. So because the government is predominantly made up of white people, you believe the predominance of white people in America felt the same way the government did. In the same token, you then look at black Americans historically as people who didn't have anything to do with it at all. Meaning that it was only things that were being done to you. You had absolutely no say so. You were, restrained from actually being accountable not only for yourself, but the things that are happening around you. And that's the problem that we intrinsically come into when we're having the debate about the external over the internal. The things that you are doing as a response to the external versus what the external is doing to you to quote unquote make you react the way you do. There's no doubt in my mind that the government doing these things, one of the key things that they wanted to do or achieve in doing the things that they were doing was to demoralize black Americans to not respond in the ways that they were supposed to. So something as off the cuff as the GI Bill and explicitly excluding black American veterans from those benefits. 100% they're expecting black Americans to respond emotionally and respond in a way that will say, hey, I don't own this home because the government didn't allow me the money and the grants and stuff like that to be able to get it like that white person. That is exactly their plan. Now, for me, I'm looking at it from a more stoic point of view to where in that regard, you respond not so much emotionally, but you respond in the similar ways that a case like Elizabeth Freeman. Elizabeth Freeman was a former slave who was kidnapped and brought back into slavery, and then was able to successfully sue and gain her, not only her freedom, but reparations for her slavery. She's one of like maybe 3 black people that I know of that was actually able to successfully sue for their reparations from slavery. Meaning that, and this is how she did it. So I don't want to jump ahead in the story. Elizabeth was in the dining room of a bunch of local government officials, and she was listening to them talking about the Constitution and talking about, you know, how all men are created equal and all of these different things. Elizabeth couldn't read. From what I read, she couldn't read, but she can hear and she can understand. So she used that argument against those same men. So she ran out of the house, found the nearest lawyer that she knew. She knew a lawyer, right? I guess it was somebody in town or whatever. She knew a lawyer. She told the lawyer what her situation was. Like, yo, these white dudes in here talking about how all men are created equal and we are free to do any and everything that we want as an American citizen. I want in on that. I need that. This is what's owed to me. Not only that, I was kidnapped here. I was already free. They kidnapped me and put me back into slavery. So that's a double dub. And she was able to sue and get her reparations. So for me, when you respond emotionally, you are taking away particular particular procedures that you can actually implement, not only as an individual, but as a collective as well, because you're so mad. You don't think about the actual solutions that you can get. So when a problem is brought your way via your government, your op is your own government. So I understand, you know, the weight of this. I do. In understanding that weight of your government being the entity that's opposing you, you also have to understand that the people before you dealt with opposition from their government. And this is how they responded to it. It was more stoic. It was more logic based. It was more action based. A lot of people don't tell Black American youth today, but Black Americans fought and killed KKK members routinely. They don't tell you that part of it because that part of it is the narrative of stoicism and action. They want you under the narrative of emotion and reactionary behavior. That's what they want. They want to keep you in that state. Now, this is true for everybody. I want everybody to know that I'm using Black America as the catalyst for this because I am a Black American and this is what I'm passionate about. But understand, this largely is going to eventually apply to you. We've all seen, if you're being an objective person, we're seeing the vilifying of the straight white male. Now, that's not my ministry. That's not my fight to have. But you would be, you know, essentially at this point, deaf, blind, and dumb if you haven't seen what's happening on that side of the quote unquote culture war. So with that in mind, I just want to let you know that, you know, Black men, been there, done that, got the t-shirt and the mug. Just keeping it 100. Should have took notes. So let this be a lesson for everybody, because Black Americans are the canary in the coal mine. We are. They do all of this shit to Black America first. And then when they see that it actually works with the social engineering and all of that, you know, psyop that they put on Black America, they then, to be able to control the entirety of the masses, put it on y'all. So it's another reason why, you know, Black American history and Black American culture and Black American economics and political history and all of that stuff is extremely important to just the entire zeitgeist of American history and American culture. So when you are faced with this governmental opposition, there are 2 ways that you can go about this. And it may be more than 2, but for the sake of conversation, I'm going to just dial it into these 2. You're going to be proactive or reactive. Now, there always should be an inherent distrust of the government at all times. There always should be a level of skepticism and pessimism when it comes to dealing with the government, because the government is not necessarily, even though on the books they are supposed to, but not necessarily putting the benefits or the interests of the actual population at the forefront. I think that's can go without saying at this point as it pertains to our government. So specifically for Black Americans, when you are faced with these governmental, this governmental opposition, the best way to deal with it, from what I've seen historically, is to approach it in a stoic way, logistical way, in a way that's actually going to hold the government itself accountable for what it did. They like to hit you with the social shit. They like to hit you with the social racisms and, white only stores and, all that other stuff. But listen, that's them. We are focused on these representatives. We're focused on Congress. We're focused on the president. We're focused on actual politicians who, by and large, have the last say so in which the social sphere is going to behave in particular ways. Now, you're not going to be able to legislate, every facet of human behavior. You cannot legislate racism away. I'm letting everybody know that. Racism is here. Racism has been here since the dawn of man. Whether you want to, talk about its ancestor of tribalism or whatever you want, because I know a lot of people like to talk about the creation of the caste system and the mid-centuries and stuff like that. Like, I get all of that, how the European view of caste or race and all that other stuff now purports or dominates the way race is talked about. But even without that, you had one group believing that they need to protect themselves and fortify themselves from another group and be able to favor their group over another group. That is something that's inherent in us. It's the reason why that you care about your kids more than you care about somebody else's kids, even though you care about them all. It's how it goes. Now, using that preferential treatment to be able to subjugate or hurt or fight or whatever, another group, that's also been around since the dawn of time. So when you are looking at these governmental opposing legislation and all this other stuff, responding to it in the opposite way that the government will want you to respond to it, then now puts the onus back on them to actually show why this is even a viable way of doing things. And I know a lot of people who give American history this broad stroke of all white people were racist and all black people were victims. That's the broad stroke, especially when you get it into the 18th and 17th and 19th centuries. There's no agency at all, because all you think about is slavery. All you think about is bondage. All you think about is the lack of agency of black people. You don't even conceptualize these people as people. And that's the part of the psyop. See, me, when I read, and this is a part of just what me as a historian has the luxury, I'm not going to say the privilege, but the luxury of being able to do, is that I read slave narratives. I've humanized slaves while you've only dehumanized them, because you've only looked at slaves from the scope of white people and how they viewed them and the emotions that were attached to the dichotomy of the white response. See, a lot of people like to have this broad stroke of white people every last one of them people was racist. I don't think that's necessarily true. We already know that only about 30% of white people even owned slaves in the country at the height of slavery in 1860. And you cannot exclude the white abolitionists, the white anti-slavery societies and movements that were going, throughout from the 17th century. Rhode Island had gradual abolition acts, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. There were white people that were against slavery. I know that sounds insane and shit like that, but no, that's what it was. It was a dichotomy of thought. There's a varying degrees of thought when it came to that shit. You had people who were not even, first of all, most people couldn't even afford slaves. Slaves adjusted for inflation were about $20,000 to $40,000, especially for a grown adult male and shit like that. So Most white people couldn't even afford slaves. That's one. And then two, it's just like today. So what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to history is that, 100 years from now, that's going to be you. The way people 100 years from now are going to perceive you is going to be through whatever lens they were taught about 100 years ago. So in 2125, when it's time to go over Black Lives Matter, when it's time to go over Donald Trump, Joe Biden, all of these, Obama, all of this different shit, like over that past 100 years, whoever is teaching them this history and whoever's purporting this history to them, or just how they're going to perceive the events that they're reading about, is going to dictate how they view that time. Now, while we are living in it, we can all agree, unless you're one of those emotionally midget, intellectual midget people that, paint with these broad strokes with people with indictments. No, don't get me wrong. Generalizations are a thing. Like, this is what it is. But when you start to be like, all white people are racist and all that other shit, like, I tune you out. Just like saying all black people are criminals and shit. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's not even an emotional thing. It's not that I'm upset that you made this generalization. I don't respect your ability to actually have a conversation about race relations. I don't expect you to actually have a nuanced view of this stuff. Despite you actually, and I'm not saying this as a way of benevolence of any sort, but you've had good dealings with white people. You have. There's not a single person that I know that is black in America who had 100% negative interactions with white people. I don't think that you can even find a black person that has that. Now, it may be some people who are in, extremely segregated areas where there are no white people at all, and the only white people are around are like the police or something like that, and they've never had to go to a white doctor or emergency room. They've never gone to a white owned store. They've never dealt with a white person at all in good faith or anything like that, and they've only had negative 100% negative interactions with white people. I think that would be very rare. Same thing on the opposite side, as far as white people who can literally walk around and say, I've never had a positive interaction with a black person. I feel like that's just insane, unless the lifestyle that you live, the neighborhoods that you lived in, just did not have that other race in it for the most part. So that applies 100 years ago. There are going to be people in 1925, 1825 who are white, who did not rock with slavery or do not rock with the subjugation of black people. And it may not be the liberal benevolence that people are used to with the bleeding hearts and being offended on the behalf of black people, but simply because it's unconstitutional, simply because it's illegal, simply because they do not agree with the way black Americans are being treated. This is what's happening all throughout the history of the United States of America. And it's annoying to hear this type of shit because it sounds like I'm caping for white people or I'm trying to make excuses, and it's not. I am challenging you to accept the nuance. I'm challenging you to accept the fact that there was not a wholesale hatred of black people by white people. And there was not a wholesale lack of autonomy, lack of intellect, lack of wherewithal, lack of ambition, determination, etc., of black people at the time, despite being in shackles. I bring up all of the time Lunsford Lane. Lunsford Lane was a black man who was enslaved but also owned a business. Now, am I saying that all slaves could have owned a business at the time? No. But when you are talking about this particular, time, you do yourself and the people that you're speaking to a major disservice by not talking about these different aspects of the time. And why wouldn't you? It happened. The lynchings happened. The bombings happened. The cross burnings happened. What's that shit called? Wrongful convictions. All of those things happened. Lying on black men saying they're raping white women. lying on black women, saying that they were being promiscuous and she welcomed the rape from that white man. That all of that happened. But you also had white people standing in the gap for black people. You also had people who, not through their feelings, not just through their words, but through their actions, actually made themselves of use as allies to black American struggle and black American plight. It's one of the reasons why, despite me disagreeing with him politically, Fred Hampton having that mindset of, yo, listen, man, this is not a race thing so much that it is a status class thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm no communist, but I do get the sentiment because there's historical records of black and white slave owners hobnobbing with each other, while the overseer was in his cabin that was adjacent to the slave quarters. That's a fact. That actually happened. While most black American slave owners bought their friends and family just to keep them close and kept them in slavery because if they were free, they would have to move out of that state. There were black American slave owners who owned slaves purely for economic reasons, who abused and what they would call disciplined their black slaves in the same ways that white people did. It's a small number compared to the white slave owners, obviously. However, that happened. That is a part of the history. So when you are getting all of these different types of nuances, you have to understand that there are different states that responded differently. In my Black American Communism video, Peter H. Clark was able to galvanize a bunch of staunch black Republicans. This is the same shit that we was talking about with Darren Seals, just in the opposite way. Just, a century and some change before he did it. But in Ohio, they had black codes. The black codes were around for 20 years. Slavery was abolished in 1863. These black codes were there all the way up until 1883. And the black voters was like, yo, listen, man, we've been voting Republican, staunch Republican, just like how black people are staunch Democrats today. We're staunch Republicans, and the Republicans are not doing anything to repeal these black codes in Ohio. So a bunch of thousands of black American voters in Ohio was like, we're going to start voting Democrat. And the Republican candidate at the time, I can't remember his name. Just go watch the video on communism. I forget his name, but he promised, as he's a white man, he promised to repeal the black laws if they brought their support back to the Republicans. This is in 1883, 1884, around that time. Probably even 1888, but still in the 1880s, this is what's happening. Black Americans are able to leverage their political influence to be able to repeal legislation that was harming them based upon that politician wanting votes. And that's what happened. They were able to, the Republican won, because the Democrat came through like, yo, listen, if y'all see I'm getting all of this, black support, hey, I'll be the one to repeal the black codes for y'all. Give us the support. You haven't really given Democrats a try. You're looking at Democrats the way they behave in the South, but we're a little different over here. They're not a little different over here, but that's what they told them. And the Republican was shaking in his boots like, oh shit, they literally about to leave the party. They took him for granted at that moment, at the very least. And then once black people showed them like, yo, we not going for that, the Republican was like, yo, black Ohioans, please give me your support. I need your support. And if I need to repeal these black codes to get your support, that's what I'm going to do. And this is something that we've seen throughout history. Another one that's similar to this is Coolidge. When Coolidge won the election, he went to Howard University, spoke to all of the graduates, and told them plainly, like, yo, it ain't really about you. Your success is not going to be hinged upon you relying on the white man. You are college graduates. You are the future of your community. You have the power to do any and all things that you are able to do. Don't look for handouts. That's what he said, essentially. I'm paraphrasing. And then after he won, he donated millions of dollars adjusted for inflation to create the medical wing of Howard University. That creates hundreds, thousands of doctors in Black America. This is what you get when you're facing policy and politics from a stoic point of view. It really does not fucking matter if you pull at these politicians' heartstrings. They don't care, yo. Like, how much more convincing do you need to understand that your suffering, if it comes with money behind it, is A-okay to them? It's A-okay. They do not care, bro. You have to make sure that you get your end of the deal correct, because if they're able to fuck you over and still prosper, they're taking that route 100% of the time. If they can promise you a bunch of shit and did not deliver on it because you're not going to ask for a recall after you get duped, they're going to lie to you. These local and state politicians, they know that they're doing wrong. They don't care because the way they living is right. Their lives are lit off the backs of your suffering. They do not care. However, if you go and galvanize your community to be like, yo, we not going for that fuck shit, and knocking on your councilman's door, your alderman's door, your representative's door, and never letting them get a day of peace, civically, obviously, based upon their inaction on what they need to be doing for your community, they change their behavior. If they know, especially when you come to these local elections, these elections be won by dozens, if not 100 votes. There's local elections that be won by like 20 votes, dog. Imagine if you organized in your community to be like, yo, listen, these are our 5 points. These are our 3 points. These are our 10 points that we need, and we know we can get it done based upon these logistics. And if you do not deliver on these things, we're not going to vote for you. If we can't get you to say, not only in public, but in written documented, that we are going to do these things for you, we're not going to support you. And if you try to pull a fast one, promise us all of this stuff, document it publicly, which is only going to help us, and don't do it, we're not only going to hold you accountable for lying, we're going to vote you out. And we're going to give the next politician the opportunity to make good on our votes. The minute you start to devolve into, yo, how could you do this to us? You are wrong. And, trying to browbeat these people into doing the right thing does not work. Does not work. Look at the shit that the government does. Look at it. Look at the Patriot Act. Look at the shit that we have to do in airports. They have no problem stripping your rights away, dog. They have no problem telling you how to live your life. They have absolutely no qualms about socially engineering you to do the things that they want you to do, by hook or crook. Knowing this, and we got these decades and centuries of all of this data that they're willing to do this, how are you going to respond? So, just so you know, I didn't lose my, my train of thought when it came to the underlying story. I am saying pretty much all of this. Now, this is a lot more polished now, 10 years later. But these are the things that I'm saying on the timeline. And I'm losing all of these friends and stuff like that. And then because of my friends following and, my followers following and stuff like that, I'm being retweeted. And now Black Twitter as a whole is in my mentions. And one of the main insults that kept coming up in my mentions when I get to talking the way that I talk, this Hotep ass nigga, this Hotep ass shit. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Because at the same time that I'm being insulted by Hotep, I'm being embraced by Hotep from the conscious community. Like, literally will say, peace, Hotep, to you as a greeting in one community. and in a different community that looks the same. You dig what I'm saying? They look the same, but they calling you a hotep as an insult. So for me, I was like, yo, listen, you're right. You're right. If the people that I'm connecting with are doing their best to provide solutions and have been for years. Like by the time that I got hip to these dudes in 2014, they've been rocking since 2009 and 2007, 2010. They've been rocking for years. By the time I get to them, there's some new, people and stuff like that. But, the elder statesmen, the OGs and stuff like that, like they've been around for a very long time. A lot of them are from New York. So they grew up on 125th and just as kids walking by these guys and, all of this different thing. It's a culture. It's an actual legitimate culture being cultivated out there. So I'm in good company in my mind, and I still believe so for the most part. There's some bad actors and stuff like that in every community, except Hotep Nation. But I'm being cheered by this class or this community of Black Americans, and I'm being jeered by this one, and I'm in the middle because it's like, yo, I actually, have a fondness for this group. We actually kicked it in real life. We actually did all of these things. And there's not a teacher out there. There's not a person who likes to teach who doesn't want the people that they care about the most to get these types of lessons. Get it for free. Like, I love you. I want you to know about this history book. I want you to know about these historical political plays. I want you to know about all of these different things that Black Americans have been doing, not only contemporarily, but historically as well. Y'all the first people that I want to enrich. And having that tug of war, essentially, to where it's like they pulling me on this side and be like, yo, get away from that Hotep shit, bro. Like, we cool, da-da-da-da. And I saw that more and more. They was like, you on some Hotep shit, but you still my nigga type shit. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm just talking about fucking eating fruits and vegetables, bro. And like, I'm just talking about like living healthier, getting wealthier, and having a prosperous life. Like, what is this connotation that's being attributed to my ideals? And on this other side, they calling me and telling me that, yo, son, you on point. Keep doing the shit that you do. Keep talking to, speaking the truth. Keep talking these solutions and giving solutions. Don't stop what you're doing. So obviously I went with the latter, and of course I don't regret it. It's one of the best decisions that I ever made. But I was like, yo, listen, we gotta take this Hotep shit. So me, Hotep Jesus, my boy, Uncle Hotep, we all came together, created Hotep Nation, and from there, we now created a base. We created a headquarters. We created a central hub for all things that is positively attributed to Hotep. Because I'm gonna keep it 100, and we're gonna get into the video in just a second. I'm gonna keep it 100. There are certain people that are attributed to Hotep that I don't necessarily think are, and I have a very sneaky suspicion that I'm going to see a lot of that in this video that we're gonna watch. We're gonna watch this video and react to it in real time and shit like that. But before I do that, I'm gonna use the bathroom. So 1 second. All right. So we're gonna watch this. It's my first time reacting to a video. Like I said, I'm familiar with dude. This is not a YouTube premium account, so there will be ads. Just letting y'all know this. Bear with me. We'll skip them as soon as the prompts are up. But we're gonna start. So this is the title is "You Don't Even Know What a Hotep Is, so maybe you should shut the fuck up about it." I like the title. Let's see.
How am I already underwater?
I'm in the same boat.
I'm in an actual boat. Because I've been using Grammarly's AI for years to keep me high and dry. Try it.
Just learn how to spell.
The first color on this flag is red for a reason. It's the blood that makes you African, so I would never mistreat a mixed race African.
John Clark and Amos Wilson, and some of those names I haven't heard up until I started engaging more of these politics that were to the left, that were more African centered.
Them hoteps, oh, they the worst. They say the shit so nice to you hypothetically, respectfully. If you slept with me genetically.
Black women went wrong because we don't know how to just lay up under a nigga. It's like they make a modicum of sense and then they just kind of take you into the other direction.
Struggle is up, brother. Oh, oppression is up, brother. Salami, eggs, and bacon.
But we'd hate to think the devaluing of black life and brutality against black people is just the status quo. It's a day at work.
I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that's a blow made. And they haven't even begun to pull a knife out.
It's hard to make sense of the topic of what is or is not a hotep. To try to make sense of the topic of hoteps as we understand the term today takes a lot of explaining, hence the length of this video. This pejorative term for a specific type of pro-black caricature has mutated to describe a lot of people and a lot of ideologies. Too many, in fact, to the point where the word, I'm realizing, doesn't mean anything and means everything at the same time. There are a lot.
That's a fact. This is what I'm saying. You'll have people call you Hotep, and just because they disagree with what you're saying. Like, because you are saying some shit that I believe is a little bit too Afrocentric, that I believe is a little bit too, revolutionary, militant, strict, conservative, like, you name it, all of this shit is Hotep. And when everything is Hotep, nothing is Hotep. So that's a fact.
A lot of different characters in the story of how the word Hotep, which is an Egyptian word for peace, became a term used to describe everyone from Louis Farrakhan to Umar Johnson to even me, which is one of the reasons why I realized this video had to be made at this point. But for this,
all right, so this is what I'm predicting is that because he was called Hotep on more than one occasion. And when we're talking about profiling and all the other stuff, he fits the profile. Dreads, RBG, black content. I'm pretty sure that he probably had like black solution based videos. I'll say this. I'm only familiar with Son from his viral clip of talking about people being like diehard Drake fans. Like he was like, yo, if Drake is your favorite, like if you are a fan of Drake and you like some of his songs and shit like that, he got some slaps, that's cool. But if like Drake is your favorite rapper, then something's wrong with you. Like you're genuinely a bad person. So and that's what I agree with. I agree with him on that. So I'm going to have to assume because of his approach to his content and stuff like that, he is going to differentiate Okay, he's going to differentiate himself from the Hotep moniker. Now, from the title, it's like the title gives the tone of like, yo, I'm actually going to defend my Hotep guys out there. You know what I'm saying? You don't even know what a Hotep is, so maybe you should shut the fuck up about it. Sounds like he could be like saying that to the public, or this could be a quote that the public gave him as a response to him speaking out against Hotep. So we'll see.
For the sake of not making a long video longer, I'm going to start with a man named Ronald Everett, better known as Ron or Maulana Karenga, and his role in the assassination of a Black Panther in 1969.
We're starting to see the first, well, I think, the advent of more and more violence in this country by revolutionaries.
We are the people's workers, and we're going to keep serving the people. We're saying power to all the people.
He defends most militantly as a Black Panther, outspokenly engaged in revolutionary activity.
In 1969, Alprentice Bunchy Carter formed a Southern California chapter of the Black Panther Party. The Panthers at the time had grown to pretty significant prominence in Black circles, especially in urban centers, as the civil rights movement of the previous 10, 15 years had lost a lot of steam and a lot of financial support, along with favor among Black people, as there was a growing sense of radicalism in Black America.
You're going to sit in front of your television set and listen to LBJ tell you that violence never accomplishes anything, my fellow Americans. But you see, the real problem with violence is that we have never been violent. We have been too nonviolent.
As such, the Black Panthers were different than what people had seen up until this point. Most significantly, the Black Panthers were an explicitly leftist socialist organization, something that's constantly left out of mainstream depictions of the Black Panthers. Further, they kind of...
I talked about this. I talked about this in my Black American and the relationship with communism video. I talked about this. When it comes to the Black Panther Party, that was their tenets. And like, I know people like to intellectually masturbate about, you don't even know the difference between socialism and communism, and they're not the same at all, and all of that. It's like, yo, dog, no, it is. They're the same. Like, they're the only difference between socialism and communism is that the ways in which you implement it and how extreme you're willing to go. With socialism, there's like some private property, but most everything is owned by the government. And when it comes to communism, everything is explicitly owned by the government. There is no private ownership whatsoever. The government is controlled. The state is in control of rations. They are control of all means of production in society, period, point blank. So socialism is just communism light, if you ask me. And in the video, one of my major disagreements was the political side of the Black Panther Party. I have absolutely no problems with the Black Panther Party as it pertains to the programs that they created, like the free breakfast program, the ambulance, patrolling the police. They would literally patrol police cars that were patrolling the neighborhood just to make sure there was no abuse happening on the streets. They would make house calls to protect wives and children. They would do all of these things on the muscle to protect their community, provide for their community, and I commend them 100%, full stop. However, all of this, and I mean all of it, as far as the results that it brought, actually feeding the children, actually protecting the communities, actually fortifying and doing all of those things, yes, could have been done under mid to late 20th century America. That's where we fundamentally disagree. I understand. And I'll even take it a step further and say that I said this in the video, if you wanted to create a socialist utopia inside of Black America or inside of America, you have the ability to do that. There was nothing stopping you from buying a bunch of properties, owning them, and being able to charge your tenants, whatever you wanted them. As long as you were able to maintain the ownership of that property or of those properties, you can create whatever you want. You have people like Father Devon who did something similar, where throughout the Great Depression, through his means, the fact that, you know, his congregation, his followers, his people were donating money to him, and he also had grocery stores, real estate, as far as like, you know, residential homes and stuff like that. He had different assets that were income producing that were manned by his congregation. So throughout the Great Depression, Father Devon was able to subsidize and help his people, you know, weather the storm through the Great Depression, giving them housing, food, clothing, etc., etc. So, because, oh yeah, that was another point about Father Devon. All of his prices were fixed. Socialism. He had fixed prices. He didn't, if the bread cost more to him, he didn't raise the price of the bread to the customer. That was his choice. He was able to do that. So, when it comes to creating this environment or creating this ecosystem, so where like we just want to be self-reliant and be able to have a high trust society to be able to engage in these socialistic activities amongst each other, you can do it. Excuse me. You can do it. Do it yourself. Like literally just buy the properties and do what you want with them. As long as you are paying your taxes and, you know, all the stuff that keeps everything above board legally in this country, you can charge whatever you want. There is no law saying that you have to, you know, have a particular profit margin. It's all on you. And I think that one of the realities, and this is not so much for the Black Panther Party, but like socialists and communists in general, is that they have these notions based upon the head start that capitalism gives. So because of all of these pre-existing structures, establishments, institutions, and all of this other stuff that you are able to benefit from and gain from, we can now use the laurels of that to be able to push socialism. But they don't necessarily understand that you're going to need continuous capital throughout time for this to actually maintain itself. Like nobody, even in your organization, is going to do labor for free. Nobody in your organization is only going to do labor for that one meal a day to sustain themselves for that one day, especially while the entire country is surviving and thriving under capitalism. And it also is something that I knew that they at least acknowledged. I'm not going to say fully understood, but at least acknowledged that happened prior to them, is that, yo, the things that got you to this point in the 60s and 70s is the black capitalism. It is. Your ancestors, your grandma, your grandpa, your mother, your father, your great grandma, and all of them, they came up under capitalism and was able to move and shake under that, and to be able to create environments for you to go to school, to be able to get a better education and stuff like that. Like a lot of these guys that were the creators of the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton, they met in college. They met at Merritt College, like in Oakland. So these are college educated guys. Like to this day, like if you're not taking loans and shit like that, even when you do, that's expensive. College has always been an institution, even before this, like the way they've turned college into just pretty much debt. That's all they turned it into. It was still costly to go to college. It was more affordable back then, but it was still something that you had to come out of pocket for. And you had to have a particular economic background to make it into those, those classrooms. So you've benefited from capitalism. There's nobody who's lived an entire generation inside of America that can say they didn't benefit from capitalism. You just can't. It's what this entire country thrives on. Now, don't get me into crony capitalism. Don't get me into the Federal Reserve and how that's pretty much communism and all that other stuff. Like, just face value, for the sake of argument, we are a capitalist society. We're definitely not the communistic regime that a lot of these revolutionaries wanted. That's what I'll say. So you have all of these things, the wherewithal and all this other stuff. Yeah, you're getting the influence from Mao. You're getting the influence from Karl Marx and stuff like that. But for the most part, when it comes down to the way that you function throughout life at this point is because of your mom, your dad, your community, your grandma, your grandpa, and all of the things that they taught you. And I can guarantee you, even though Peter H. Clark was a socialist, because he flipped back. Like he was a Republican, then a socialist, then a Democrat. Like he was all over the spectrum. But I promise you, for the most part, that generation was not pumping socialist ideology. They just weren't. We had Lunsford Lane, who was a slave. He was capital, making capital. So when I say like the proclivity to, be associated or participate in capitalism is much higher than socialism or communism. Now, you're going to see different points of a Black American history where socialistic things took place. Like I said, Father Devon and other examples. But by and large, you're going to see capitalism at the nucleus of that. And it's so crazy how that connects with the way modern day socialists and communists try to look at Scandinavian countries as the bastions of socialism. And those countries had to come out to be like, yo, listen, dog, we are not socialists, bro. We are a free market capitalist society who've invested in social programs due to our extremely high taxes. Like, that's what that is. High taxes, and those taxes actually go to the things that are supposed to help socially. I don't know the efficacy of these social programs. I just know that that's the mechanism of the ways that these modern day American socialists try to use Scandinavian countries as, the epitome of socialism. It's nuts. Like, they literally had to write articles and tell people like, yo, stop calling us socialist countries. We are not. So all love to the Black Panther Party, but that's where my fundamental disagreement comes in. As you can see, this video is 2 hours long, and we're not even 5 minutes in. So I talk a lot. Deal with it.
Left the whole nonviolence thing in the background. They trained in various forms of self-defense. But true to that leftist philosophy, they made a lot of efforts in community organizing and education and engagement, providing childcare and free schooling for inner city Black residents wherever a chapter existed.
Mm-hmm. What? No. What the hell is... Yo. What is going on with the... Oh, look. They embarrassing me on the stream. Oh, that was just to get out of the full screen. Skip ad, bro. Come on. Sorry about that, y'all.
Their complex organizing principles, leftist ideology, and willingness to defend themselves with violence made them highly targeted by the American government, with then FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover calling them a threat to American security and pouring massive resources into destroying the Panthers and any other forms of Black radicalism. And that's because the Panthers were just one group in the late 60s organizing around what's often called the Black Power movement, which is an overall movement focusing on a reimagining of what it meant to be Black in America, as well as recognizing that direct action and more confrontation with the system was necessary to free Black people. And this at times brought them into conflict, not just with the system, but with each other.
Difficult for me to use the phrase Black Power because of the connotative meaning that it has for many people.
And one such incident was a conflict between Ron Karenga and his organization Organizing Us and Bunchy Carter of the Black Panthers in Southern California in the late 60s. The Panthers were, as I said, Black radicals, greatly focused on class struggle and agitating for direct resistance to the current state of oppression for Black people.
Are you saying that you can change it with the vote now instead of with the guns?
We're saying, like Malcolm X said, the ballot or the bullet.
But they were not anti-working with other groups, as illustrated with Fred Hampton's Rainbow Coalition, where he organized with white and Latino people.
What we're saying is that there are white people in the mother country that are for the same types of things that we are for stimulating revolution in the mother country. And we said that we'll work with anybody and form coalition with anybody that has revolution on their mind.
Karenga, however, had the belief that Black people were at their core Africans and should create their own culture and sense of nationalism within America, greatly apart from the general white society.
Some people were trying to make alliances with their enemy, and at the same time had no power to make an alliance. You cannot make an alliance if you have no power and someone else has all the power.
There was a championing of lost African traditions and a strong...
Hey, look at that black American flag back there. That's fire. That's fire.
Sense of community building internally and excluding everyone else. Not just in terms of space, but also identity and culture, even language. Many Afrocentrists under Karenga got rid of their American names and adopted Swahili or African names.
Do you really want to spend the rest of your life watching ads? Guys, just download Pi. It's a free Google Chrome extension and it basically blocks ads for you. And
An ad about blocking ads.
Why is it important for black people to have a mythology? It is important because black people have to have, as everybody else, a starting point. You just can't spring up in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia like Topsy. You got to start from somebody. You got to start from somewhere. And you got to, in terms of starting like that, be what? A chosen people. Everybody's mythology on this planet makes them a chosen people, except those.
Karenga, however, was a believer in what would eventually become Afrocentricity or Afro-cultural nationalism. Though for reasons that will be explained later, both of those terms aren't perfect descriptors for the various schools of thought and movements that are often labeled as such. There wasn't the same sense of class struggle, as this particular movement was most prominent with college-educated, upperly mobile black people, and there was little effort in the way of direct resistance to the system like the Panthers are doing. And this was the core of the conflict between these two groups. The Panthers saw the US organization as a half measure, a compromise with capitalism, fascism, and white supremacy, unwilling to directly resist those forces in the name of black liberation.
So this is what I'm talking about. They not trying to hear no capitalism. They not trying to hear no profit. Now, when it came down to funding their movement, they used capital. They sold the Black Panther magazine. What else did they sell? They sold books. I remember they had like a campaign where they were selling like Miles' Red Book for money and stuff like that. And their justification of this was that, one, their margins as far as like how much they charged versus how much they had to pay for the publication was very minimal, and they only charged what was necessary to be able to keep the organization running, and they didn't keep any surplus of their profit, you know what I'm saying, from the sales of these books. But you know, money had to be made. Like, I know it sounds crazy, and this is again where you're not understanding the nuance. If you get offended by this necessarily, is like, yo, listen, they had uniforms, they had black berets, leather jackets, and tons of firearms. None of that is free. None of that is, you know what I'm saying, something that's going to come out. They don't, like, black leather jackets, black shades, and black berets don't grow on trees. Guns don't grow on trees. So it's just like, you have to be able to fund this. Now, me being a conspiracy brother that I am, I wanted to know if there was a, you know, entity, person, or something like that that was, you know, funding the Black Panther Party. But just through my research, it was self-funded. So shout out to the BPP. You know, for holding up those standards, those economic standards. You know, I don't necessarily agree with it, but the fact that this wasn't, you know, shadow funded, you know, by some, you know, nefarious external group, I appreciate that.
Negroes have to put Negroes to work. So you run into a major contradiction. If you have capitalism, even if it happens to be black capitalism, you have to have a people to exploit. Now, we're about saying that the masses of black people should be in control of what is theirs, which means that they cannot be exploited anymore, which means that simply, by the needs of the people, we must destroy capitalism.
See, I get that part. I understand where they're going with this, right? The ideology is that, yo, the government owns, or white supremacy, white people own all of this stuff. We're only being exploited because we make up the, you know, largest population of our poor, and you need these poor people in order to make capitalism thrive and survive and sustain itself. And because of the poverty that America reaches, as far as its dire straits poverty, they use that as the class of people that are necessary for capitalism to thrive. However, they don't acknowledge a few things. One, they don't acknowledge time. They don't acknowledge that from the time that you were, let's just use me as an example. I've made my first dollar at 8 years old, right? By the time I'm 35 now, I make obviously substantially much more than that throughout my life by using capitalism. And if we want to be even more practical about it, from 18 to now to 35, I make substantially much more money than I did when I was 18 at 35 years old. That's due to experience in the workforce. That's due to the skills that I've gained over those years. That's due to my ability to not only make money, but keep money, etc., etc. I am richer today than I was when I was 18 years old. And the other thing that they don't factor in is that when they're using the word exploit, it's very intentional. It's very deliberate, because when you hear it, it automatically lets you know that this is a nefarious, negative thing that's being done. And what's not being acknowledged is the reciprocal relationship between employee and employer. Now, I broke this down with Stokely Carmichael's example in my Black American relationship with communism video. But when it comes down to using the word exploit, it's like how, it's funny, it's ironically how similar people use Hotep. It's a pejorative, it's a slur and stuff like that. Now, of course, Hotep and exploit are not the same in its origins. But if you were to just not use that word and just say, yo, capitalism needs a lower class of people to be able to survive because of, the jobs and all of the stuff, the menial labor that low-skilled, unskilled people need to occupy. It now becomes, so that means they can gain skills and move up the ladder. You don't think about upward mobility when you hear the word exploit. You don't think of progress when you hear the word exploit. And if you do think of progress, you're only thinking about, of course, the richer get richer and the poor get poorer. Now, that is not to absolve the government or our economic system of any wrongdoing. There are wrong things that happen under capitalism. 100% full stop, no excuse. To think that because of that communism and socialism is better on the macro than capitalism, you are again not acknowledging reality in that way. And I said that in my video, was like, yo, was the goal honestly to overthrow the United States government and turn it into a communistic regime via revolution? That is such a tall order for the most ambitious of us. And I'm one of those people that believe that your dream should scare you and, all of those, dope things. But yo, to overthrow the United States federal government, turn it into a communistic or socialistic state, and then have 200 million people at the time. I want to say it was about 200 million people in the 60s. 200 million people to march to that tune without no more no counter revolutionaries, no revolutions of people who were like, yo, listen, yeah, I heard what the Black Panthers and the socialists and the communists was talking about, but I got a different way of political and economic ideology, and I believe that the Panthers and the socialists and the communists are actually wrong, and we need to now overthrow them. Nobody thinks about that part. They think that you're going to overthrow the government, install this socialistic communistic regime, and everybody's just better off for it. It just doesn't make sense to me.
On the other hand, us saw the Panthers as reckless and unorganized and incapable of actually having a real lasting impact.
They used to have nonviolence and integration. Now they got violence and integration. It's the same thing. It's the same cardboard Murphy game, the P game, that every nigga should be hip get to by now.
And there's angles and arguments one can make on behalf of either particular opinion.
Anybody that goes for that is a chump.
But in the end, it wasn't a battle of ideas that ended this feud and decided the future of black political thought.
A 450-year-old chump. So in 1970, we're going to separate all that.
Instead, it was guns.
At the University of California at Los Angeles, 2 Black Panthers were shot to death.
2 of our brothers who were our leaders and who were beautiful, beautiful men were shot down by pigs. And they were not white pigs, and they were not uniform pigs. They were black pigs.
Do you think yesterday's shooting was a deliberate attempt to kill these 2 men, or was it out of an explosive temper?
Somebody from the US organization has slapped her. This is when the Steiner brother supposedly steps out from behind the doors and open fire.
Did you give an order? Did you send?
I did not give an order. I'm not even in town.
The members of the US organization were taken from the crime scene.
It was deliberate. They were on target. Our deputy minister of defense is dead, along with our minister of information.
Cleaver said a purge of Black Panther members is tearing the party apart.
The government, power, COINTEL, whatever, when they killed Bunchy, they killed the party. We just didn't know it.
I chose Wix for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and freedom of creation.
So, moving forward, I'm gonna get YouTube Premium just for me, not for y'all, for me. You dig what I'm saying? I can't be having the ads and all of that shit on my streams, so we gonna get YouTube Premium. But we're gonna bear with these fucking ads tonight. We're gonna bear with these ads tonight. If you're wondering why I'm sitting here silent, I'm trying to figure out if I want to step outside for a second and come back in. Yeah. I'm going to step outside for a second and come back in. That's what I'm going to do. 1 second. right, I'm back. For a quick second. All right.
It was as ugly a turn of events as one could imagine for two groups that, for all intents and purposes, should have been working together. Or was it? See, years later, it was revealed that the CIA's COINTELPRO operation had infiltrated both groups and was purposely fanning the flames of discord. Further, it's strongly believed that Karenga, the ostensible victor in this conflict, being the last one left alive, was actually working with some of these organizations. It has been admitted by the CIA that they persistently worked to infiltrate and destroy black power groups in the 70s and 60s up until the 80s. They often don't name the names unless people name themselves. However, by his own admission, we do know that Karenga worked with the LAPD and even met with Ronald Reagan after the murder of Martin Luther King in a measure to ensure there'd be no civil unrest in the wake of King's death. These are things Karenga spoke to as the wrong move, and it would color his image in the eyes of many black American rappers.
Yo, not for nothing. I need to holler at somebody who can do this type of video editing. Shout out to my man. He has great production quality. And I do similar screen grabs and saving of my own pictures and videos and stuff like that. And I have a good collection of assets. Just as an aside, episode 5 of Hotep History was slated to release this week. I spent 2.5 months curating, researching, recording, editing, and doing all of the things that goes into creating a nice, well-packaged explainer video essay about the relationship between upper class, middle class, and lower class black Americans from the 16th century? 16th to 17th century, around that time, all the way up into the late 20th century. It was amazing. Visually, it was amazing. Vocally, I mean, come on, it's my voice. Amazing. I saved everything on SD card because my hard drive on my laptop is not large enough to, fit all of the assets that I was putting into the video. And I finished everything, fam. I finished everything. I'm talking about the editing, shouting out my Patreon subscribers, which shout out to y'all, and all of that. And in my haste to free up space to be able to upload or export this video out of CapCut, I had to free up space on my SD card because I was using that many gigs apparently to, add all of these pictures and videos and all of these different things. And in my haste, I deleted the video with all of the files that I aggregated for episode 5. So I would show you, but I would have to go into my settings here to try to change the share screen and all that other stuff. But I'll, show you a screenshot eventually. But all throughout CapCut, it just says media not found on over 300 pieces of media that I personally aggregated for that video. And before you ask, yes, I did do my due diligence on recovery tactics on my SD card. And after my recovery attempt, I learned that not only were the files that I accidentally deleted on that SD card in the shadow realm, the ethereal realm of the SD card, it was still there, even though it was, technically deleted. It was a whole bunch of other stuff. So when I'm only looking for 340 pictures and video clips that I used, thousands upon thousands of files came up on this recovery attempt. And at first, I was going to thug it out for y'all. I was going to thug it out. I was going to sift through all of these thousands of different files and replace all of them one by one to be able to bring you episode 5, because I worked so hard and so diligently on it. And hour 3 into that retrieval and reinstalling and all that other stuff, it was too much. Because first of all, the recovery was happening at the same time that I was trying to put the recovered assets in to CapCut again. So we already at 10,000 PNG files being recovered, 10,000 already, and I still had an elapsed time of about 12 hours of recovery. So I've only been recovering for about maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes or something like that. And I already have 9,000 files just in pictures, not counting video clips and things of that nature. And to be totally honest with you, chat, I couldn't do it. I would not do it, because I can do anything I want, but I would not do it. I would not do it. The work that it would have taken me to retrieve all of those different files through is hundreds of folders, thousands of files, and I'm only looking for a fraction of those many files, and none of them are being, aggregated in a place to where I could just like drag and 20 images at a time and put it in there. Like, no, I have to go through hundreds of different folders to find hundreds of different folders amongst thousands upon thousands of files that still needed 12 hours of recovery to be able to get, all of what they can get out of it. So I say all that to say is that episode 5 will either be changed as far as like what the content is going to be about altogether. It's got to record, write a new script, record a new video, and put the assets, the new assets up there, or find somebody like my man here who clearly has great editing skills and stuff like that, and and make it happen. I'll send him the WAV file, the MP3 file of my voiceover, and they'll be able to edit all of these amazing great things. The reason why that's hard for me is because there were screenshots of personal books that I have, like screenshots of digital books that I have, and just recovering that alone could be a little bit easier, just because in the script I referenced them, so I could just go to the books that I'm referencing. But man, like, if somebody can turn my 1 hour and 20 minute video, 1 hour and 20 minute audio into an impactful video that I find visually pleasing and quality appropriate, I'll put it out. But for right now, I got a whole schedule of videos that I got lined up. It's looking like I'm just gonna move on. I really wanted y'all to watch episode 5 and learn about the different like class clashes and stuff like that, because it goes deep, like all the way, like I said, it goes all the way back to the 17th, 18th century, all the way into the 20th century, just the elitism and the social clubs and the ideologies, the behaviors, all of these different things that were happening throughout the centuries in America as it pertains to Black Americans and their wealth and their class and all that other stuff throughout American history is extremely important, extremely fascinating, and I really, really wanted to bring it to you, and that's why my head was down working. I don't, y'all didn't see me tweet like that and all of that, because I was really working hard every day on it, on top of doing other work that you need to do. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at with it. I'm either going to just scrap it all together, or an amazing editor like Son's editor, or himself. I can assume that he's editing his own videos. But this is the type of editing that I rock with, as far as explainer videos, video essays, etc., etc. So get back into it. I said all that to say that his production is fire.
Radicals for the foreseeable future, to know that he does have some form of relationship and reputation with the same administrative powers that Black people saw as their oppressor.
So I want you to address what I think are the two lingering allegations that have kind of circulated around you over the last 30, 40 years. One concerns the killing of Panther leaders John Huggins Jr. and Bunchy Carter at UCLA on January 17th, 1969. And in fact, someone just put that in the chat and said they heard it.
In terms of bad looks and highly concerning accusations, this isn't as bad as it gets for Karenga, and we'll talk about that later. But what's more significant in the moment is that despite all of this, Karenga has went on to be one of the most influential figures in the aesthetics, at least, of Black nationalism and Afrocentrism. He created the holiday Kwanzaa in the 60s, which reached the height of its popularity in the US in the 90s and 2000s.
These children get a rare opportunity to perform for the person who created the holiday they sing about. Before speaking at Florida A&M University's Black History Convocation, we asked Maulana Karenga to reflect on recent African American history. First, the impact of Kwanzaa, 46 years after he started it all.
And this also promoted the language of Swahili in the process, which also helped popularize the abandoning of slave names by Black Americans. Now, of course, he wasn't the first or only person to do a lot of these things, but he is one of the most prominent and the originators of it. And I know for me and my upbringing in Afrocentric circles in Chicago, Karenga was a name I heard a lot. And in that regard, when you take a critical look at all the things that Karenga's career is attached to, he is probably the most important influence on what we might call today a Hotep, for better and definitely for worse. The concept of what a Hotep is a topic that I and others have avoided, because in some ways it's transgressive for me to speak on it, and let's just say mixed company. I'll hit 1 million subscribers by the end of this year. This ain't all niggas. I love all of y'all that watch me. I appreciate all my supporters, but certain times, certain conversations don't feel like they're appropriate for certain viewers. And while I've always talked about Black politics and issues, I've avoided those topics on purpose because I feel like in a lot of situations, they'll either do more harm than good or just be really annoying to have to explain from square one to people that even if I explain it as best I can, it's gonna be really hard for them to understand. Further, I realized that I'm not just a normal guy on YouTube, I'm an influencer now. People are influenced by the things I say. I've watched TikTok and even normal TV more than a few times now and felt like I was hearing people directly quote things I've said in videos. So talking about some real deep lore shit within Black culture and Black political thought could be seen as not being on code, and it's irresponsible to spread Black business like this. However, I think that's also maybe a cop-out on my part. An easy...
Before you finish, bro, because this is something that it comes up. If you are somebody who not only speaks about Black American culture, Black American politics, economics and stuff like that, there is a level of gatekeeping from the external. And it's not like, I know he's, you know, just referencing white people at this point, but this goes for every non-Black American person. It's really not a difference for me. Like, but the other side of that is that, yo, there are going to be Black Americans throughout the country who may not know this information and they do need to learn it. So I've had this thought several times. Like, yo, listen, total transparency, there is some Black history that I know that was completely Black American autonomous. Like, there was no white person behind it or nothing like that, at least not in a way that, you know, is so influential. But it's not necessary to put on the world stage. And though I do not have over 900,000 followers like my man here, I still believe that as a content creator and somebody who is putting stuff out there to ingest, that I do have to be somewhat careful in the way that I convey particular messages and lessons and schools of thought, because there are certain things that are supposed to stay within your community. There are certain conversations that are relegated to no outsiders allowed, members only jacket type shit. Like it is. And there's an example of a particular language that people speak that it's known, but it's not taught to people publicly. It's only taught privately. because that language is important. Like, the secrecy of that language is important. Like, to be totally honest, I feel a little tinge weird even saying those sentences. That's how culturally prevalent it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be for everybody to learn. There's certain things that everybody should know. Now, what a lot of people tend to do, though, is that they put that under an umbrella of, you can't critique, as a black person, you can't critique other black people because white people are watching. And I've seen that throughout the years too. Even the term being on code is that. And being on code is essentially like understanding where you're at and not saying too much to be able to give people who do not have your best interests at heart unnecessary intel. And you would understand that if your people were under surveillance in particular ways, like black Americans were, like wiretaps and being followed and shit like that, just for believing what you believe in. Like, the entire pursuit of all of this, like the fucking program was called COINTELPRO. It was counterintelligence program. They wanted to not only gain information and intelligence from the groups and people that they were monitoring, they wanted to also espouse information. And this is where this conflict even comes from, is sowing dissent between people that would be closer to budding factions and using their differences against them. So when it comes to code, being on code, it's rooted in survival. It's rooted in understanding that this information could be used against me if I tell it to the wrong people or the wrong person. So I get that. However, I do not agree with worrying about white people when it's time to educate black Americans in things that are hurting us in mass. See, that language and all of that shit that I keep away from people who don't speak that language is not hurting anybody in my community or outside of it. But when we're not acknowledging the way politics have negatively affected us, the two-party system, the way that black Americans in general, but black Americans have been socially engineered to behave a particular type of way or think a particular type of way, and being swayed by the media, public schools, and other influential factors in one's life, that is where we run into trouble. Because one, there are going to be black faces who are fucking pushing this shit onto black Americans. And two, there's going to always end up being a sense of responsibility that you have to uphold once you hear this information. And those two things together can be perceived as or taken as being off code, because white people are now able to listen to these conversations, or non-black people in general are able to listen to these conversations and being a party to it, and then being like, well, Hotep Doobs said y'all need to fucking eat better, handle your money better, and fucking stop being so X, Y, and Z. Therefore, my prejudice or my discriminatory thoughts or whatever it is justified based on that. And I am saying in direct response to that it's too late for that. It's too late for that. You gotta understand that you, as far as other like non-black American people are concerned, you're not in control of how they view you. They have their own ecosystems on social media. They have their own books, movies, music, culture, and all that other shit that if they are going to engage with you in good faith and respect, they will. If not, they won't. Now, could your behavior or could certain changes in black America change the way they view you and interact with you? Sure, I'm sure about it. But for the most part, I am worried about the black people that are going to hear the things that I say and actually be positively affected by it and bring on positive change. More than I'm worried about a white dude or a non-black person, period, having a particular view of me or my people based upon the prescriptions that I give in my people. More than likely, the likes of which he already thought before I even made a video or before I sent out a tweet or whatever. I'm less worried about him and more worried about the black babies who do not know their history. The black adults who do not know their history. I'm more worried about those people than I am worried about a black white dude or a non-black dude being like, oh, you heard him. Hotep Doobs said that there were black slave owners, so therefore fuck everything that you guys stand for and stop fucking complaining about slavery because there were fucking a few hundred fucking a few thousand black slave owners, most of which who own their fucking family and shit like that. Like, that's like, I'm not worried about that white dude. That white dude was always desensitized to the history of slavery in this country. And again, pulling at the heartstrings of that person to try to feel for me is not my ministry. That is not my endeavor out here. It's not my path. I don't care about changing the hearts of people who are not even willing to in the first place. It's a fruitless endeavor. I would never do that. There are going to be people who absolutely hate my commentary on this video, and I accept that. That's not something that I'm really tripping about. I said what I said. I'm not right all of the time. I'm open to being wrong and being corrected, but when it comes to like the things that, you know, I truly believe in based upon my research and the things that, you know, that I've experienced and all of the things that come together as my own critical thinking, nah, you're not going to be able to get me off my square just because you disagree or don't like what the fuck I just said. That's just what it is. You just got to deal with it.
The position to take to mask my own flawed understanding and relationship with this term as it has been popularly used for more than a decade. Because
hey, man. Shout out to him, man. This is what I'm talking about. This is all I wanted. This is all I just wanted an objective, and I'm glad I picked his first because the root, I already seen that video years ago, and I watched it, forgot about it, and because I don't pay attention to the root. I just don't. But I'm appreciative of him approaching this in the nuance and the nuance and objective way that he's approaching it. He could have came out the gate being like, fuck them Hotep niggas. I ain't fucking with the Hoteps. Da-da-da-da-da. Like, he's not doing that. He's giving historical context. He's giving historical lessons. He's also combining the contemporary, following up on the figures that are still alive from that period, and then also understanding that there are varying degrees to this. He understands that, I may be not all the way understanding of what Hotep has been used as for the past decade and all of that. Like, I appreciate that. I don't know how this video is going to end. We only 13 minutes in. Like I said, I talk a lot. Let's get back to it.
Become apparent in this last decade or so as this term has been used. While it's been fun and funny to criticize and ridicule the likes of Umar Johnson, Tariq Nasheed, and maybe even Kanye West and Kyrie Irving, the absence of a real understanding of the term's pejorative use and its history has also been instrumental in mocking and dismissing Black radical thought as a whole, from the likes of John Enright Clark, Kwame Ture, and Frantz Fanon.
See, now, I said this earlier in the beginning. Only 30 seconds later, my fault. I'm not apologizing. If you go to the Black American in the relationship with communism video, I've been referencing this video a lot. This is something that I brought up. Like Kwame Ture specifically. You dig what I'm saying? Him specifically. And the issue is the way he's, and I'm just assuming because I didn't play it all the way through yet. I just wanted to just give my thoughts as it's happening. I believe he's nearly conflating black nationalism, black capitalism, and black forms of liberation that are more conservative, than the radical militant side of Black America. And again, when we're talking about, actions over emotions, this is a very active side. This is not just pulling at heartstrings liberalism that we're talking about here. We're talking about revolutionaries. We're talking about black men and women who are willing to take up arms for the shit that they believe. They ain't worried. This ain't no Black Lives Matter type shit. It's liberal. It's left-leaning. It's socialistic. It's communistic. For sure. Absolutely. They'll even tell you that. But to think that they not willing to act behind that shit and actually make things happen in a more deliberate way, you'd be making a mistake. You'd be making a mistake in conflating those two. So understand, we are at war with communists and communism, and we got young black military-aged men talking this communist shit, anti-capitalism, and all of that. And then again, you got the more conservative side that being like, yo, listen, dog, we just want to be able to open up businesses and thrive in our communities and like build wealth and build community and stuff like that. Like, we not necessarily trying to overthrow the government for real. Like, so those are the two different sides. Kwame Ture and the Black Panthers and a lot of these revolutionaries and radical liberals and shit like that, they was like, yo, burn this whole shit to the fucking ground. And they meant that shit. They wanted to dismantle capitalism, and you even see it today. Now, again, today, these black socialists and black communists, thankfully, are not as action-based as their predecessors. Because I'm telling you, shotguns, black leather jackets, black berets, and black shades, and getting busy with the police, getting busy with the state, getting busy with domestic terrorists, getting busy with protecting their blocks and their homes, and doing all of that while also holding these rallies that have dozens and hundreds of people there, galvanizing them to push anti-capitalistic and communistic views, dog. Like, it was action. Now, could it be fueled by emotion and the way they felt about capitalism and all that other stuff? Sure, absolutely. I don't think they liked it at all. But it was the ideologies of Marx. It was the ideologies of Mao. It was the ideologies of these communist revolutionaries and socialist revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution and all that. Like, this is what's inspiring them. This is what they're learning. This is where they're getting their political ideologies from. They didn't get it from black anything. Like I said, the earliest and first known black American socialist was Peter H. Clark. And that was late 19th century. You didn't see much of that. You dig what I'm saying? Like, you saw some. But as we're getting into the top of the 20th century, the Bolshevik Revolution, World War I, and all of that, that's when you start to see it pick up a lot more among black Americans. Then you got a lot of the immigrants coming over who are pushing it. Hubert Harrison, Cyril Briggs. Who else? There was a few others. It was a nice chunk of them who were pushing this in the black American space. And then this also works with the Harlem Renaissance as well. You dig what I'm saying? And this has been a fight. This has been a fight in black America for centuries. Now, conservative capitalism was winning from the late 19th century going into like 1920. Honestly, the last bastion of that conservative capitalism in black American history was like your Booker T. Washington. And once Booker T. Washington died in 1915, a lot of this shit economically and politically went to the left. Like, literally. Like, it went left. Super liberal, super radical motherfuckers was trying to shake shit up when it came to, changing society to create an environment or facilitate an environment for black American advancement, as opposed, again, going back to the internal versus the external, as opposed to self-enrichment, being able to get the government out of the fucking way and allow you to enterprise amongst yourselves, allow us to build wealth, group economics, build our schools, our churches, our homes, and all of that, and not have government sanctioned fucking domestic terrorism and all of that other shit. That's what that was. Like, they wanted to just be able to continue building the way that they've been building for years. But these kids, man, these are young people. Kwame Ture, Huey P. Newton, Angela Davis, who ended up being CIA, but like, these are young people, dog. Not Huey Newton. Fred Hampton got killed when he was, 21? 21. So you got to factor in the years that even would take for him to even become dangerous, to where the FBI and the Chicago Police Department would work together, along with William O'Neill's rat ass, to take him out at 21 years old. Killed him in his sleep. So we're dealing with the youth. You've been 21 before. You've been 19 before. You've been 18 before. Like, you've been a kid before, and you remember what you thought about the world, how you looked at the world. I know better. I know I could do better. And listen, if you're young and you're listening to this, if you 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, watching this, understand that you do possess the power and the intelligence and all of the wherewithal to change the world. You do. But also understand that history and wisdom and experience also plays a major role in your development presently. It's not just for you to be able to give props to people in black and white pictures of people who came before you decades ago. It's for you to understand the blueprints that they laid out. It's you to be able to study and read not only their achievements, but their failures. So while I can say I appreciate the Black Panther Party for all of what it's done for Black American communities historically, I can still say politically and economically, socialism and overthrowing the government to usher in communism was not the right way, no matter how much I agree with their programs. It was not sustainable. And that's not to disparage or disrespect my ancestors. It's to understand that in 2025, if I am going to take any lessons from them, it'll be the programs to do, and then the political and economic side of it not to do. Not because I'm scared of the government, not because I'm placating or being complicit in white supremacy. It's because one actually worked as a net positive for Black America on the macro, and the other one doesn't. And at best, you'll only be able to have that work on the micro level. You are not going to be able to have a fruitful Black American population under socialism or communism. It's not happening. It's not happening. You can have subsects and subgroups of Black Americans who engage in socialistic activities, like having a co-op grocery store or some shit like that, or a condo, and you guys are all pooling your money together and shit like that. Like, that's, you can implement those things within group economics, but I promise you, the only thing that's going to keep that afloat is profit-driven capitalism. That is what is going to keep you in the black year in and year out. Point blank, period. You need to be able to sustain yourself. And while I know people are listening and being like, well, they could just fund themselves off of donations for the rest of time. And it's like, okay, but now the success of that is only contingent upon people's benevolence to give you money, as opposed to you being able to provide them a service or a good that not only enriches their personal life, but helps the community at large, which then incentivizes the community to pour back into you. When you are offering, hey, I have ideology, I have good ideas of how the things should work in this world, and you should continuously donate to my cause in perpetuity until we reach it or don't or not, you need to keep donating. Or what would be more attractive? Or The organization is like, yo, we have these many businesses set up in the community. We're employing these many people. They like to say exploit, but we're employing these many people. We're gaining these many skills amongst those people. And we're able to use the surplus of our profits to be able to make sure that our babies do not go to sleep hungry or go to school hungry. That we are able to make sure that our elderly is protected and provided for. That we can make sure that our mothers and our fathers out here are not only gainfully employed, but protected by outside sources who mean them harm. We fund this all from ourselves. And so instead of putting the responsibility on the macro to be able to take care of the micro, it would be smarter for them to be able to deal with things that are going to help them, the macro, that will make it much easier for them to support you on the micro. That's just how that works. That's just how that works. As you can see, think about your own life. When you dead broke, you not giving shit. You're not giving anything because you are walking around with a scarcity mindset to begin with, because you know you lack and you need to obtain and you need to be more abundant. The minute that you do become more abundant, most people tend to be more generous with their funds, tend to be more generous with their time when they free up more time. That's how that works. And that is because people are in a better position to be able to help others. Forgot who said it. Can't remember right now, but it's hard. The quote is, I can't help the poor while I am poor, or something to that effect. I can't help the poor if I'm of the poor, or something like that. And while that can be scrutinized and debated all day long and shit like that, for the main point of this is to understand that once you get yourself correct, you are now able to focus even more of your free time to help others. I'm not saying that while you're on your journey of self-development and personal development that you can't help your fellow man or your fellow woman. No. I'm saying the opposite, actually. However, I am saying that the optimal position to be in to help others is after you've helped yourself. That's just how that goes. So instead of pushing this communistic, socialistic, ideology, I just believe that this would have been way better for not only the Black Panther Party, but the people that supported them, the Black Americans that supported them, the white Americans that supported them, to understand that trying to usher in communism in America was a fruitful endeavor. And it's all respect to them, but it wasn't it. So we're going to see where he falls on this. Is he on the Black nationalist side, which is rooted in more so conservative capitalism? It has its different varying degrees, but the conservative capitalism side of Black power and Black achievement, Black liberation, all of that, or the Pan-African side, the more communistic, socialistic side. We'll see.
Difficult for us to deal with because the enemy has done so much to hide Pan-Africanism. I mean, if you take a man like Frantz Fanon, how many of you heard of Frantz Fanon? You'll hear a lot about Frantz Fanon, but you'll never read that Frantz Fanon is a Pan-Africanist. He's a revolutionary, he fought here, he fought there, he did this with the French Communist Party, but nowhere will they call him a Pan-Africanist. And Frantz Fanon is a sterling example of Pan-Africanism.
And as I said, it's a term that's used to dismiss me at times, along with my evil nemesis, Lil Bill, who's also making a video on the topic that you all need to watch. What started out as an insular joke and meme for Black culture suddenly became a term used to dismiss any form of pro-Black radical thought, or just pro-Black thought at times, by people who would rather not engage with what's being said. And while I've never taken the accusation of being a Hotep seriously, I've had to come to terms with the fact that this comparison is happening in part because there's been a significant effort to flatten, mock, and dismiss all of that radical thought that informs my political analysis. And it's probably time something significant was done about that. So that's what this video is. Bill's video, which again you should watch after you finish this one, will go over the long history of Black political thought and cultural events that often get grouped into being Hotep, along with discussing how the bastardization of these politics is greatly an internal problem. He's going all the way back to the Civil War, believe it or not. Yes, the shit goes that deep. But for this video, I'm going to spend more time examining the modern phenomenon of how the term stops being a specific greeting between certain people and certain cultures that are insular and significant in their own right, to being something we use to mock goofy guys online that wear ox and think you shouldn't eat corn. What created the atmosphere for this distortion? Who is most responsible for it? And what unforeseen consequences have occurred because of it?
We have to look at the concept of Hotep from three players in this. The people who are identified as Hoteps, their supporters, and their detractors. They all play a very significant role, and the vast majority of them are full of it.
When we spoke about what even would this conversation be, I did say, like, you know, I'm not that familiar with the politics of it, like the ideology of it. To the point of the mockery, it has become a caricature, but it has become a caricature because of what you named, the reactionary aspects of it, right? So people don't even acknowledge what it means. I remember seeing Dr. Gregory Carr on Twitter kind of like erupt in a sort of like passionate like pushback around the ways that it just took off and the flattening of Hotep and the way that it became a pejorative in a sense, right? It became a slur to call someone a Hotep, and it also became a way to dismiss something that was easily said.
I said all of that. I said all of that. Yeah, it's on stream. I said all of that. That's a fact. I lived it. It's the reason why I'm Hotep to this day.
That kind of turned me off to like the whole college educated, like the black bourgeois pan-Africanist type of, because in my mind it's like, you know, I grew up with this, and it turned me off to just straight up, you know, pan-Africanism or just straight up black nationalism, because it was either two groups of people it was either two extremes. It was either the people, you know, who went 10 toes down into what I grew up with, which I knew, and I saw all of the goofery that was going on with that, or it was the people on the complete other side that was like, oh, okay, well, the streets don't got nothing substantive to contribute because it's the streets. And so here I am somewhere in the middle trying to rectify, you know, class conscious and race consciousness at the same time.
Africana studies comes out of this movement. Black studies comes out of this movement. Some Africana studies stuff does in earnest, with integrity, make it into the online space. But I think it very quickly, once you realize about like going viral and building an audience, it very quickly gets taken over.
Oh, hello again. You may remember me as the unwitting narrator in Feek's last deeply complex video about black issues in America. A video I was both ill-suited for and deeply uncomfortable doing. But as recompense, Feek has invited me back to host a video that he assures me will be a far more appropriate fit for a YouTuber who specializes in anime, pro wrestling, and video games. So, part 1. What exactly is Hotep anyway?
My boy, my man, you, for 18 minutes, you gave us you. And the introduction and all of that. Beautiful. Gave him his props. Y'all heard me. Y'all heard me give him his props. And then you got a white, hold on. Where was son at?
Including a lot of black folks that don't really know this term or where it came from.
Exactly is Hotep.
Hold on.
Again, you may remember me as the unwitting narrator in Feek's last deep.
We got an Irish white man about to give niggas what Hotep is. This is right after Son said, yo, I don't even want to be off cold talking about this shit. I'm being very careful, but, well, that's not what he said. He said that he was dealing with that back and forth of like, damn, I don't want to be off cold, but I also can't just be hiding behind my ignorance and unfamiliarity when it comes to Hotep. Just for you, a few minutes later, to have an Irishman tell me President Hotep Doobs what a Hotep is. What? Nigga, all right. This is your video, bro. It's your video. Don't understand. All right.
Deeply complex video about black issues in America. A video I was both ill-suited for and deeply uncomfortable doing. But as recompense,
I'm uncomfortable hearing you.
To host a video that he assures me will be a far more appropriate fit for a YouTuber who specializes in anime, pro wrestling, and video games. So, part 1. What exactly is Hotep anyway? Wait, what is Hotep?
While I know a lot of you already know what a Hotep is, I also know that there's going to be a lot of people watching this, including a lot of black folks, that don't really know this term or where it came from. The term Hotep originally comes from the Egyptian language, and it means I come in peace. It was a greeting popularized by Afrocentrist communities in the US probably since the 80s. However, around the 2010s, the term became more properly used as a pejorative to describe a certain type of guy or sometimes girl in online and black space.
All right. So he may have faked me out with the white Irishman. I don't know if he's going to be a recurring character, but we dodged one for a second. It seems like it was a funny little fake out. My bad if I just didn't wait for the punchline. My bad. Hopefully he's not a recurring character in this video.
A short, easy definition is that a Hotep is a person who employs pro-black or Afrocentric aesthetics and talking points, often to promote what are actually conservative or right-wing opinions. But another definition might also just say that a Hotep is a person whose engagement with Afrocentric and pro-black aesthetics and rhetoric borders on the bizarre and the buffoonish. I would argue that it's a spectrum of sorts.
They got my boy. Now, they got my boy HJ right in the middle. Look at my son. They got my son in the middle, son. And this is recent too. All right, HJ. So we on the map, baby. We on the fucking map. We got it. My son got it. We made it to the video, baby. We made it. And now, from what it seems like, they got him directly in the middle. So, Hotep Nation via HJ, my man. Make sure you follow him at Hotep Jesus. It's my boy. He's in the middle of it all. He's not all the way Dr. Umar. He's not all the way Karenga. We're going to see.
Hotep might just really be into New Age thinking or pro-black politics to the point where they become a bit too strange even for other pro-blacks. Or they might be talking about homosexuality being a plot by Jewish bankers to destroy the black family. Or they just might be trying to say that if women stopped eating corn, they wouldn't have a menstrual cycle. This all may sound made up, but it isn't. And the fact that it's a spectrum is kind of part of the problem. There's not a perfect example or definition of being a Hotep. But internally, black communities kind of know it when they see it, which is why people were confused when I say Kendrick Lamar could be called a Hotep. While Kendrick Lamar doesn't seem to have the regressive politics and super Afrocentric aesthetics that we sometimes attach to Hoteps.
See? You're getting it. See, you gotta listen to people. He's been saying certain shit. He's saying shit like, yo, Afrocentric aesthetics, regressive politics. Like, you gotta peep it. Like, these ain't dog whistles. He's just using the English language to describe what he deems the general term, wherever you sit at on the spectrum, whether you a super, revolutionary type or not, you are still generally proposing regressive policies, and you're only going after, or mainly going after, Afrocentric aesthetics. And then he couples that with Kendrick Lamar, which I ain't gonna say I too much disagree with that. Like, I ain't gonna lie. Like, it could be said that Kendrick is Hotep, if not at the very least Hotep adjacent. Big fan of him. I've been listening to him since Overly Dedicated. The Yeah, I can't think of anything anti-Hotep that he's done throughout his career musically. And then as late as what was that? Damn. Was that Damn? When he said that, I'm an Israelite, don't call me black no more. That word is only a color. It ain't facts no more. Like Duckworth, yeah, that was Damn. So on Damn, he says he's a Hebrew Israelite. So Hebrew Israelites have definitely been called Hotep countless times. So, yeah.
If you listen to his lyrics and you're familiar with the concepts and imagery of Afrocentrism and Pan-Africanism, you recognize that there are a lot of influences there. Kendrick has referred to himself on record as an Israelite. It indicates that members of his family were black Hebrew Israelites. Now, Hebrew Israelites are not Afrocentric, actually. In fact, they tend to be very anti-African. But some of the problematic elements of the Israelites' cult-like behavior and leaders, anti-Semitism, homophobia, and general loudmouth buffoonery are all signifiers of what many might call a Hotep. For the record, though it's clear that some influences in Kendrick music are there, I don't actually think Kendrick is an Israelite. For you hardcore fans in the audience that's going to focus on this in the comment section. But Kendrick's association with the concept of Hotep is actually a good starting point on why it's such a challenge to talk about it with some form of accuracy. Afrocentrism and alternative black thought has traced influences on so many things in black culture, from hip hop to art to fashion. And if all you know about black culture is that this also is what Hoteps look like, you'd be prone to see much of this stuff in a negative light. At the same time, the worst parts of Hotep ideology often get the most attention, especially when social media gets involved.
See, this is what I'm saying. It's so matter of fact and nonchalant to say things like Hotep ideology. You just said it's hard to even describe what a Hotep is, but there's Hotep ideology. And this is what I'm saying. Like, while I can appreciate his attempt at being objective and just, speaking as nuanced as possible, there are clear things that are anchored into his perspective about Hotep. And that's clear because of the Dr. Umars and, whatever ups and downs, blunders or whatever he may have with the outside looking in general black American public. Different depictions throughout our pop culture. Right? So you got Conspiracy Brother and Undercover Brother. You got, what was his name? Preach or some shit like that. And Don't Be a Menace. Like, you've had these caricatures of these so-called pseudo-intellectual Afrocentric black dudes. Shit. Now that I think about it, Don't Be a Menace had two of them. They had Farrakhan Vic and they had Preach. I think his name was Preach. I mean, y'all tell me in the comments if that was his name. I don't remember. I haven't watched Don't Be a Menace in a while. So when you combine that with today, this pejorative, they may have not called those men Hotep back then, but the behaviors and the tropes and all of that other stuff still lasted over the decades. So now they just coined the term and called men and women Hotep based upon this, what he calls Hotep ideology. And I'm sure when this 2-hour video, he's going to get into what that ideology is. From what I can hear, he's talking about homophobia, sexism, all of the same, insults and tropes that's been thrown on us. All of these stereotypes that's been thrown on us is just, blatant hotophobia. So I'm telling you, it's hotophobia. People are hotophobic. It is what it is.
We not gonna talk about Uncle Shannon Sharp. I heard he got caught on the live banging out a snow bunny. We not gonna talk about Uncle Shannon Sharp. I heard he got caught on the live banging out a snow bunny. We not gonna talk about Uncle Shannon Sharp being snow bunnied on Instagram Live. We not gonna laugh at our brother.
So at my age, I'm 38 now. My age, it's about 7.5 days between ejaculation to maintain who I am.
Really?
Yeah. And
damn.
Yes. So a man's strength is his balls, right? That's right. So every time you deplete yourself, you're not the same man anymore. You lose your superpowers.
I knew I was going to admit.
Yo, son. So I'm gonna give y'all a little BTS on this shit. So HJ calls me, or I call him. We was talking on the phone. He's telling me that he was gonna go on Rogan and shit, right? And one of the things that he does, I don't want to give too much sauce away, but one of the things he does, whenever he's on somebody's platform that's pretty large and shit like that, whether it be Joe Rogan, on Fox News or wherever he's at, he does something with his appearance that is going to be the main focal point of what, like, of him being up there. So when he was on Rogan, he told me, he was like, yo, dog, like, I'm gonna keep my eyes wide the entire time. Like, I'm gonna keep my eyes wide the entire time I'm up there. When he did an interview with the good sis auntie, he had folded his legs and like he crossed his legs in a particular way the entire interview that he knew people were going to talk about. It's just, he's a digital marketer, and that's the type of shit he into. So he knew, like, I know him in real life. Me and him have kicked it in real life on several occasions. He does not look like that when he's speaking, even when he's speaking like profoundly and shit like that. Like, he doesn't do this by default, but this is the shit that he be doing as far as like digital marketing, the online marketing side of it. So this is just how my man is. Like, I've grown to accept him. Like, he accepts the fact that I am, like, I'm loud, I'm boisterous, I still got some hood in me, and, you know, I still have Ebonics as like one of my base languages. Like, he knows that I'm Doobs. You feel me? And I'm Hotep on top of that, right? And I accept that he is a digital marketing genius. As you can see, we are on a video that I'm sure has millions of views on it, and he's in the graphics looking like this. It lasted the test of time. He did exactly what he set out to achieve going on Rogan. That's my brother, and I love him.
We have to speak on the issue of what a Hotep is. A few years ago, when Kanye West and Kyrie Irving started getting a lot of attention for some ridiculous statements they were making, much of which was steeped in weird conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism, two very common elements of what we began to think of as Hoteps in the 2010s.
See? This is what I'm saying. Like, everything that's hateful, extreme, what they deem backward, it's Hotep. That's all it is. Listen, man, I have been in this game for over a decade, bro. Nobody, and I mean nobody, can hurt my feelings about being Hotep. We were made fun of by Roy Woods Jr. on Comedy Central when they did that bit about Black Twitter, and they talked about Hoteps. And he rushed in there with the amazing funny bit talking about we need to buy black, we need to live black, we need to smoke blacks. Like, funny. But being the butt of the joke, being the people that are ridiculed, the people that are intentionally misunderstood, you know, attributed to the worst of Black America and shit like that. Like, I'm so used to it that I'm numb to it. Like, I'm legitimately numb to it. Now we went from Kendrick being Hotep adjacent to now Kyrie Irving and Kanye West. Kyrie Irving and Kanye West being Hotep adjacent simply because they said some shit that hurt some Jewish people's feelings or some shit. Like, I like anti-Semitism and Hotep. That's how that go. Now, anyway. I'm not even about to do it. Shez, I know you watching this shit. Oh man, we're not even about to do it. That is a totally different stream. We're not even about to do that, man. This is my second time streaming. I'm not trying to lose my account. And I hate to even say it like that because I'm not scared to talk about Jewish people at all. It's just that I find it funny, man. I really do. I just, it's hilarious to me. Because I'm not even one of them dudes that's like, it's the Jews, and it's like blaming Jewish people for everything and like under the sun. I'm not even one of those people. Truly, I'm not. But it's like, it's just so funny to me that people are quick to be like, yo, that ain't us. We don't criticize Jewish people. We don't have anything bad to say about Jewish people. We're not anti-Semitic. That's Hotep shit. Like, you just throw that all Hotep. That's what they do, man. We are the bedroom in the house party that the bed has all of the coats on. Niggas just come in there, throw the coats in there. The little baby sleeping next to the coats. Nobody knows whose baby that is, but the baby in there. That's what Hotep is. We are the coat room in the Black American house party. That's what we are. They just come in the Hotep room, throw everything on them on the Hoteps, and they out they party. They get the fucking, wave their flags and do all of the fly shit and all of that, and that's cool. That's accepted amongst the culture and all of that other shit. But God forbid you tell a motherfucker to eat a fruit and vegetable on a consistent basis. God forbid you tell motherfuckers to learn their history and not the fucking mainstream history that they are telling you. God forbid that you dig deeper into news stories and you follow the money and you realize who owns and controls shit. God forbid you have knowledge of self and actually look at yourself higher than what the fucking country wants you to look at yourself. Like, all of this stuff is all attributed to Hotep, and we all are saying simply just, think more, do more, think higher of yourself, actually understand and acknowledge the power that you have, son. That's all. That's all we doing. That's the only thing that I have seen since we've created Hotep Nation. That's what we want. We want better people. That's it. Better people. More people who are confident in themselves. More people who are willing to do what's right for their own self-development. More people who is willing to be like, yo, I don't agree with what the mainstream media has been telling me. I don't agree with the mainstream narratives and all of this other shit. That's it. Breaking against the mold. And that's the reason why, if you really Hotep, you can't be offended by this shit, man. If you really Hotep, you cannot be offended by the pejoratives. You can't be offended by the insults, because if you really know the way shit go out here, you know that the crowd is not gonna fuck with you. This is what I'm saying. Being numb to this uninformed, misinformed, critique of my movement, my nation, it doesn't move me, dog. It doesn't move me whatsoever, because I know what we're actually pushing. And we don't push anti-Semitism. We don't push homophobia. We don't push any of that shit. One of the things that I need people to understand, the Hotep Nation is not anti anything. We're pro shit, and that be the problem. Motherfuckers is so worried about, again, pulling heartstrings and getting motherfuckers to change their minds and change the way they live their lives and go against their better nature and go against their own self-interest and shit for the interest of another motherfucker who don't care about you. You giving up all of your time, all of your energy, all of your efforts into another motherfucker or another situation, and you don't put in anything into yourself, into your household, into your block, into your community. You got all of this smoke for external shit, but none of the smoke for the internal shit. How is it that you are morbidly obese, but you're angry at the world? How is it that you're perpetually poor and broke, despite having the resources available to you? Because we are living in 21st century America, where motherfuckers are making millions of dollars in their goddamn bedrooms from streaming. Endless opportunity. You have a supercomputer sitting in your pocket. Computing power that 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago was almost fucking unfathomable. This is the era in which you live. But you would rather be mad about the external. You'll be rather be mad at a news story hundreds and hundreds of miles away from your front door, more than you're angry at your own fucking eating habits. your thinking habits, your behaviors every goddamn day. That shit that it will never affect your life at all is more important than the shit that actively affects your life on a second to second, minute to minute, hour to hour basis. And we're the weirdos. So why the fuck would I be upset that the mainstream narrative of me, my movement, what we stand for, and all of that shit is a bunch of fucking lies, when the entire fucking point of this shit is to be able to understand that the mainstream narratives are lies. It's manipulation. Do you know how fucking crazy that would be for me to be offended by what the fuck I speak out against all of the time? It's literally like speaking out against cobras and then being fucking shocked that that motherfucker wants to strike at you. You literally understand the nature of the beast, but you are still shocked and appalled at the beast's nature. That makes no fucking sense. So, no. Whenever people start to use these, pejoratives and insults and trying to insult my intellect and all of this other stuff, son, I smile. I don't get angry. I have been having people in my mentions calling me everything except a child of God since I was 23 years old. And I'm 35. It's nothing anybody can say. I'm telling you, from celebrities to a regular fucking no-name Twitter account. And I'm not even saying this to brag, bro. Like, I've had literal celebrities argue with me in my mentions over the years. Literal celebrities, like motherfuckers that be on TV and shit like that. Rappers and all this other shit, like, it's insane. Shit, I remember I was in a fucking space debating Uncle Luke about politics. Like, who would have fucking thought? So, hearing Hotep niggas and Hotep ideology and all that shit does not bother me, dog. I don't even care that this video, in the lifetime of both of these videos, his video is going to have way more views than mine, son. I'm cool with that. I'm cool. Because the one thing that I do know is that when I study these organizations and shit of the past, them super inclusive groups, they don't last long. It's one of the things that I learned when I was researching these upper class Black American communities and shit like that. Yo, they had the most exclusive clubs. You could not get in even if you was rich. You couldn't get in even if you was rich. You had to be a particular type of culture. You know what I mean? People that was new money. I mean, this is over 100 years ago, but considered new money back then that wasn't allowed into them exclusive clubs. It was based upon your education, your pedigree, the community and culture that you grew up in. Who was your fucking parents? Are they important in the community? Are they pillars? Do they contribute? Do they have sway politically? Can they provide upheaval in society? Oh, you just a nigga who lucked up. Oh, nah, we're not accepting any new memberships. So it's like, for me, I'm not saying that I agree with all of the methods that they use, because it was, often very selfish and very idealistic in a way that it wasn't really going to help Black America as a whole. It was only enriching themselves. Like, you peeped it. But not being accessible to every person, or not being able to just be infiltrated by any and every person. No, you doing a background check of everybody that come through your ranks for real officially. That's a good thing, my G. It's a good thing. There's stories that I have that I've told in different spaces and stuff like that. I don't really feel like telling right now because we got to get back to the video. But there's been times when the feds literally followed us. We went to the White House. You don't think they don't know what Hotep Nation was? When they invited me to the White House, you don't think they did an entire profile on me and saw analyzed all of my tweets, all of my posts online and all that other shit? I got pictures with Donald Trump Jr., dog. I was in the White House off 2 spliffs and an edible. Because I'm still me where I'm from. Like, I'm still me. Me and my boy Carl, me and my boy Maj Touré. We was about to get it shaken in the White House, but that's a different story for a different day. So, yeah, like, this is not new to me. So I just find it funny that Kanye West, Kendrick Lamar, and Kyrie Irving, the KKK, is Hotep.
He's been locked out of his Twitter account now. The platform suspending him after an anti-Semitic tweet. That tweet said, quote, "When I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." His tweet continued saying, quote, "The funny thing is I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew."
Black folks since then and well beforehand had heard all of the nonsense they were spewing. We had heard it for years, maybe even generations, and it was nothing to brush it off. But these are not just, guys in your barbershop or in your local area. These are international superstars with giant audiences.
See what I'm saying, yo? They fear it. They are afraid. They are afraid of you, beloved. They do not want your message to spread. I find that very, very funny. I find that very, very agent-y. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some bad actors. There's some dudes who are being called Hotep, who are not card-carrying members of Hotep Nation. You dig what I'm saying? That are, quote-unquote, giving niggas a bad rap. However, still, having an environment of black men and women just thinking critically it could conclude you could end at a wrong decision, but you're still thinking critically. So this is the thing, motherfuckers. I be thinking about this shit. Like, motherfuckers be wanting this Orwellian life. They want proper thought, group think. You can't think the wrong thing. You can't have bad thoughts. You can't think wrong. You're thinking incorrectly if you question anything that is the norm, which includes what's anti-Semitism. Let's get into that. Like, let's explore that. Let's get into the vaccine. The vaccine. I ain't pussy. Let's get into the vaccine. Let's just follow the money on particular establishments and institutions. Let's just think critically. Let's just question things. Even if they come to a wrong conclusion, it's way better to do that and come to a wrong conclusion than to group think your way and come to a wrong conclusion. Because it ain't about, nobody's about to tell me that the other type of thinking or the other way of thinking is inherently better and it doesn't have any wrong conclusions. It's insane to think that. It'll be fucking dumb to think that. So, yes, I would much rather there be a bunch of Kyrie Irvings, Kendrick Lamars, and Kanye West out here espousing their fucking thoughts, no matter how crazy they are. Because first of all, you got to be able to push shit on in the town square anyway, and get the feedback and see what the fuck comes back. When I was speaking out into the ether in 2013 and 2014, the feedback that I was getting back was 50-50. Then it became 60-40. Then it became like 70-30, and now. But, I got banned and I came back. But now, like, I've curated my following to it's about like 80-20, 95-5 on certain times. Who knows? And I'm not saying that everybody thinks like me or agrees with me, but they definitely critically think. We can have fundamental disagreements even though we both are critically thinking. And this is the problem when it comes to the marketplace of thought. When it comes to the market share of thought, the people who be on that anti-Hotep shit, they're only doing it because they want to maintain the monopoly on black American thought. They want to maintain the monopoly on black American politics, black American economics, and black American culture overall, because if they do not maintain control of that, they lose control of the social engineering aspect of herding black America into places that they want them to go into, which is more liberal politics, which is more left-leaning things, more of what historically will be called radicalism and shit like that. But it's not really that radical today. It's just a bunch of fucking nonsense and shit like that, to where we're conflating gay rights and shit like that with black American rights. And it's obviously, the caveat, or the preface that people give is like, oh, I'm not homophobic, but so like, yo, dog, if you think that I'm homophobic, bro, like, show me the evidence. Like, I'm not about to keep trying to defend the fact that I'm not offensive. We're not doing that. I'm a grown ass man who critically thinks, and I have no problem criticizing any group. Any group. Like I said, I disagree with fellow Hoteps all of the time. We're individual people. Now we come under this umbrella for the greater good of our people. There will be no time to I'll forsake or sell out on Hotep Nation. But if you think that there's not people in my constituency that I disagree with, you're insane. You're insane. But live and let live when it comes to that. I want him to think critically. He doesn't have to think like me. I just want him to think. And that's the problem with these anti-Hotep people. They want you to think like them. It's all hive mind bullshit. They don't want you to think for yourself. They want you to think with them. So that's where I'm at with it. So I'm seeing his angle. We're about 23 minutes in. We've been talking for a little bit. How long we been on? About 3 hours? That's wrong. Melted. I knew that shit was happening. I knew that 3 hours was gonna go by quick. So yeah, we can just get back into the video.
To follow up on the promotion of the movie and the book.
Can you please stop calling it a promotion? What am I promoting?
Put it out on your platform.
But I'm promoting it? Do you see me in front of
putting it out there, people are going to say that you are
put it out there just like you put things out there, right?
So suddenly this ideology, this frame of thought was in mainstream discourse, and it was in mainstream discourse among white people.
What did you make of his response, Nick?
It was very Kyrie-like. Having been around him now and covered him for a year, he doesn't want to say anything that he doesn't fully believe on. And when he gets pushed, he wants to make sure that he is in control. And it was so clear, guys. All he had to say was, I don't have any anti-Semitic views. That was what the Nets wanted to hear. That is certainly what the NBA wanted to hear. And it didn't happen because he always makes things more difficult than they have to be.
And amongst certain types of politically inclined white folks, there was suddenly a cry for the denouncement of Kanye and Kyrie, along with the expectation of condemning the perceived Hotep, quasi-black supremacists of black political thought as a whole that these guys somehow represented, which of course they did not. These voices came from a lot of spaces, but I want to focus on an old horse-loving nemesis who always pays his taxes on time, Vosh.
And I will be the most obnoxiously white debate bro, anti-Hotep person in the universe, okay? I will single-handedly worsen race relations by watching all of this and giving my 14-year-old white followers the impression that a lot of black people are like this.
Did you guys know that black nationalist terrorist attacks are actually pretty common in the United States? They're called black separationists, I think.
Don't get me wrong, under most circumstances, if a black guy died,
Don't he like kitty content? Am I tripping? Y'all let me know in the comments. Like, isn't this Vosh dude, like, I want to say I seen him on the timeline being like a porn addict, a chronic masturbator, and he also was like making weird arguments around kids in those subjects. Y'all let me know, 'cause I want to say he did. So the fact that this is what I'm saying, Rick Sanchez is really, really the GOAT when it comes to anti-heroes and shit, because Rick said this shit in the Ocean's 11 parody episode. He was like, I've seen what you cheer. I don't care about your booze. Like, I don't care about your booze. I've seen what you cheer. I see the things you cheer on. Why would somebody like me give a flying fuck what a man who is addicted to porn, is a chronic masturbator, and has weird cases or weird situation as it pertains to kids? Why would I care about that nigga being against me? Good. I've been against you, not even knowing who you really was, because I'm against all of that. I'm against all of it. So you being like, I'm going to take down every Hotep, I'm going to worsen race relations and all of that because I don't like the Hoteps. It's like, first of all, who the fuck are you? What control, what influence, what clout do you have amongst my people to sway any type of anything? Who is him? Vosh. If I'm not mistaken, he's also like socialist or a communist or something like that too. So yeah, like look at the ops, bro. Look at our ops. Why am I worried? So while I understand that mainstream media and all of that other stuff is going to be against it, mainstream academia, all of that stuff, I get that. But look at these people, bro. Look at these people. Why am I worried about Vosh taking down Hotep? Like, are you insane? You got to be shitting me, bro. You have to be shitting me. To think that I'm going to be, like, on edge because some weird white dude in his bedroom with an empty closet and a man bun and titties has something to say about Hoteps. Like, are you serious?
Black fake lefty died and the cops were there. I blame the cops. But this is one of those rare situations where the cops are actually the more trustworthy people in this environment.
Vosh is an influential leftist political streamer with over 500,000 subscribers at this time of recording. And over the course of several years, at least the years that I paid attention to Vosh, has made talking
Dog, what is this? Bro, what is this? Look at this. What are we dealing with right here? Look at this profile. Look at this. I don't even do like, joking on people's appearances and shit. Cause like, you really can't help how you look sometimes. It just so happens that God favors me. So he made me a handsome man. Spectacularly handsome. Magnificently handsome. Amazingly handsome. Awe-inspiringly handsome. So you can't really help that. But the haircut, the indignation in his voice to speak on my people. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure that he has a particular person in mind or particular type of people, just like dude who is making this entire video has of Hotep people. But I know some of my people was grouped into that group. So it's fuck these niggas off the rip. Off the rip. So I'm not even tripping. But look at son. I'm supposed to be intimidated. I'm supposed to be worried that this individual is anti-Hotep. This is what we dealing with. This is my enemy. This is my op. Come on now. Come on now. Give me a break, son.
About Hotep's a recurring part of his content.
And I want your white listeners to understand. Because people be trying to say stuff like, he's the Black Hitler. I'm not the Black Hitler.
I love saying that.
I am in no way interested in hurting or...
I love saying that about black people. I'll say that about any black people, honestly.
And this isn't difficult because the cartoonist images of black radicalism like Umar Johnson and Tariq Nasheed were everywhere.
If you get pregnant by a man over 50, the baby will come out already 50 years old.
I know a lot of women who...
Yo, son. So... all right, man. Listen, I'm not anti-Umar. Umar has done some things throughout his tenure that I don't agree with. Like, I don't like the way him and King Randu ended up. That's like my biggest one, next to the school and all that other stuff. But I tend to give him grace because I haven't seen him commit any crimes against black people. And I think a lot of the blunders that he has as it pertains to building his school is really based upon the fact that he's doing this. He's feeling his way through this shit. And so I give him grace with that. However, that does not stop me from criticizing him, saying the things that I think he's lacking in, giving him, all of that constructive criticism based upon his actions and inactions. And I understand that Umar is a personality. All right. So, all right. We broke down the Black Panther Party and how I view them. Here's how I view Umar. I feel like Umar should have went the influencer route first. I feel like Umar should have been an influencer first, get all of this engagement, get all of this content monetization money, and then use that money to build the school, as opposed to being on some, like, dying on the hill of, I need my school to be completely self-black funded. No white people, no this, no that. That's what he stood on for a very long time. I don't know if he still feel that way, because I remember I watched the interview with him, having white people do the HVAC or something like that in the buildings. So, maybe he's warmed up to that. But when I watched him on the Joe Budden podcast, I heard him say that he wanted FDMG Academy to be 100% black funded, black created, because he didn't want any other people in the pockets of the school. That's what he said. That's what I'm going off of. And cool, right? But when it comes to your virality, you got people all over the world that fuck with you. Yeah, but majority of them being black and shit like that. But it's like, imagine if you was able to say, consciousness over coochie and all of the shit you be saying, you know what I mean? And not have any type of situation to where the people are obligated to donate to you for a particular mission, but they are willing to subscribe to your Patreon or become members on your YouTube or give you gifted subs and different things like that just from content creation. You can sell your DVDs. Like, there's so many different things you can do to monetize and be able to make your money, use that money to build your institution. This is similar to what I said about the Black Panther Party. Like, yo, dog, just use your skills, use the things that you are good at, and provide that service and or good to the public for a price. And then you can use that money to do whatever you want. And because of how viral Dr. Umar has been over the past decade plus, one would assume if he just had a poppin' Twitter, a poppin' Instagram, a poppin', eventually a TikTok and all that other shit, and YouTube, and just making his money every month by doing that, and also doing the stuff that you actually do on the ground, your speaking engagements, your psychology for the kids in schools and shit like that, create content around all of these different things, get the engagement and get the money, and then from the money, build the school. At that point, you can take as long as you want, because when you're talking about donations and shit like that, and then you also giving them deadlines, and we're going to have it done by this time, and when you don't, meet those benchmarks, you're now looked as a scammer. But if you was just a regular content creator like me, you dig what I'm saying? And just making content, streaming, doing whatever you're doing, and you just got people, sending you money or buying things from you, buying your merch or whatever, and then you could use that money to do whatever you want. If you wanted to spend it all on hookers and blow, you can. But because you want to build this school, I think that would be the more expedient, the more expedient route for you to take. That's just my opinion. A lot of people do the nonprofit donation and all of that, but for me, dog, like, I've seen that in general, people respond better when you have something to offer them and you want something from them. Just what it is. So that's my biggest critique. I think that when it comes to what he's actually proficient at, as far as, I'm not saying he's not proficient at being a teacher or whatnot, but as far as what people know him the most for is content creation. Even if that content is teaching something or, espousing something. But you couldn't really do too much ridiculing of Umar if this school wasn't hanging in the balance. That's the only reason why you really can criticize him. Like, I know he got some baby mama drama recently and all that other shit, and like, that's nasty. That's not a good look at all, especially as a headmaster of a school. But for the most part, that he hasn't stolen anything. Well, the King Randall shit is a little different, but like, for the most part, I'll say he hasn't stolen anything. He hasn't committed any crimes, ran any scams and shit like that. It's just that I feel like his priorities is all over the place. He wants to build a school, but also wants to be King Kong consciousness, also wants to be the #1 requested in book, speaker and all of that shit in the country, in the world, like, he wants to do all of these things and achieving all of those things in different facets, but the school is catching the most lag. And that's based upon his actions. Like, you set all of these deadlines years ago, even up to, I want to say a couple years ago, you was given deadlines and stuff like that. So it's just like, people are seeing that, doing the math and being like, dog, you've gotten millions. You've had over a decade or whatever, the allotted time that you've given yourself to, build this school. And people are not really seeing the results of that stuff, and that's hurting your reputation by a lot of people that genuinely supported you and a little bit skeptical now, or leaning on the more cynic side of your movement. That's just my view. I don't think he's a net negative. I just think that he needs to prioritize better. I do think that he needs to focus on, yes, gaining funding from the people and stuff like that who are willing to donate, but also, really hone in on monetizing his content. Like, you go viral every time you speak, bro. Like, you should be able to monetize that. Like, you got people going viral off of just clipping you up and getting money off their monetized pages. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be raking in, 5-6 figures a month just off of your virality. Real shit. So it's like, for me, that's the way I look at it. It's like, when you have somebody as polarizing as Umar being able to get the engagement that he gets, like, Breakfast Club and them, like this clip and shit, they make money when Umar up there. These platforms make money when Umar goes up there. So it's just like, if I'm Umar, I'm setting up my own microphone and podcast desk, and I'm getting my shit off on a weekly basis. I'm not just going, like, if the IG lives ain't really paying like that or whatever, I'm going to TikTok live. I'm going to monetize this shit. You bugged out. We're not just going to be accepting cash apps and shit like that, bro. We going to be getting these multiple streams of income. And that's what I believe was the missing piece for him, because I ain't going to hold you, when you as polarizing, as popular and all of that as a Dr. Umar, racking up 100K is not that difficult. You stay consistent with your content, you keep engaging your following, you keep engaging your peoples and your core, your fans and shit like that, you can rack up $100,000 in no time. Especially if you somebody like Umar, who don't get into like the fashion and jewelry and all that other shit. That nigga wear dashikis and sneakers I never seen before, sneakers I've never heard of. So like, when it come to that, like, could have did this shit yourself, bro. Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, you really, like, it's good to have a piece of your shit to be like, yo, the people chipped in and all of that, but I would say like that shit should have been like an 80-20 split, 90-10 split. Like, yo, had a public, meet you 60-40, 50-50 or something like that. But like, yo, listen, I put $2 million up of my own money, y'all match my $2 million, something like that. But I ain't Umar, but that's my assessment of Umar.
We have high emotional IQs who don't get caught up in the petty back and forth.
Yes, sir. Either. Yes, sir. Yeah. But normally, more often than not, it's supposed to be the male. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the woman does have that, which is good, but that also speaks to the fact that the women are becoming more masculinized.
I like what you're doing, Dr. Umar. Beautiful black skin. Juicy J, are you a male or female? Juicy J, thank you for the $5. Are you a male or female?
Why do you need white man paperwork?
Oh my God, we've got so much to tear into.
And Vosh had gotten very comfortable comparing black nationalism to white nationalism, despite many people trying to calmly explain him the vast difference in how that makes him look a certain way.
Dog. This is what I'm saying, bro. Like, why the fuck do I give a fuck about this motherfucker's opinion of Umar? Who is, I get that he's a prominent left-leaning political commentary YouTuber. So the fuck what, son? Who is this man? Legit. Why do we give a fuck about this man and his opinion, bro? There are so many different black YouTubers and black political commentary people who have spoken out against Hotep. Trust me, I know. I've been directly fired at by these people. I'm the president of Hotep Nation, like, of course. Dig what I'm saying? Why the fuck do we give a fuck about this weirdo motherfucker? Looks like the fucking Lorax. He looks like the fucking Lorax. Why do we care about what the Lorax thinks about Hotep Nation, bro? What are we doing? And he's a weirdo. He is a weirdo. Yo, son, I'm telling you, once I get more comfortable with the streaming shit, I'm telling you, it's gonna be up. I'm telling you, I'm not letting up over this shit. Cause like, the fucking Lorax has a problem with my movement. Why do we care about the Lorax?
I do think that part of the problem is that you've been exposed to the absolute worst elements of this quote ideology, and the people that you've spoken to have happened to be the like Farrakhan end of the spectrum.
I think that is the ideology. I mean, you're literally describing both the historical and the modern foundations of black separatism.
Bro, what the fuck, son? Yo, two white dudes chopping it up about black nationalism and black separatism in Hotep. Like, this shit is hilarious, bro. So hilarious. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that white people can't talk about Hotep. Come on now. Why would I say that? But I'm just saying, when it comes down to, like, political influence and sway and opinion and shit like that, who is he as it pertains to black Americans, dog? Who is this man? We know that this man up here has the 1 million times more pull with black Americans than this motherfucker right here. So what are we doing here, bro? Why are you featuring this white man in your video?
Consistently contribute to an atmosphere that basically put the nonsensical Hotep stuff that was popular on the internet and memes and Twitter in the same category as real black radical thought, which was obviously a problem for anyone that tried to engage with this online. As frustrated as I was with Vosh's behavior at this time, what's become clear since then is that what he was doing was really just indicative of a lack of knowledge and ignorance towards these topics by pretty much anyone in the political sphere, black, white, leftist, liberal, obviously conservatives, etc.
The reason why black power seems as if it's out of control, and it seems as if they are too rebellious. They are gun-toting, angry black militants who are practicing politics without portfolio, and black power is the civil rights movement's ruthless twin. The reason it seems that way is because black power advocates were willing to speak truth to power and say that the entire system, going back to racial slavery, Stokely said this, Malcolm X said this, Angela Davis said this, Kathleen Cleaver said this, both black power activists who were men and women, but young Lord said this, Chicano activists said it, the black feminists of the Third World Women's Alliance and the Combahee River Collective and the National Black Feminist Organization said this. This went against a liberal perspective that if it was broken, it could be fixed. It went against civil rights perspectives that said if we have enough laws and legislation, things can be fixed. It didn't mean that people didn't want new laws and legislations. So what black power activists often did is they straddled both fences.
No one really has a good knowledge base or understanding of these areas of study, which is unfortunate because this is a really important part of leftist history.
Yo, first of all, that's not true. All of this stuff is documented, and all you have to do is look it up and research it. There are people who absolutely have a firm grasp on what was going on politically, economically, socially, and culturally during this time. Me being one of them. And it's not that I'm just like this crazy ass authority on this point in time. However, I do absolutely, I've dedicated hours of my life to be able to study this stuff. And I'm not really good with names and stuff like that, just off the strength of my memory. It's the reason why I do read as much as I do, because I want to retain as much information as possible, despite my my memory. But yo, to think that you need this encyclopedic knowledge of this time to be able to learn from it, or to be able to extrapolate what was going on in the macro. There's going to be some nuances that you miss just because you weren't there at the time. Like, you know what I mean? It is what it is. 50 years from now, people are not going to be able to detail every single day of the 2020s and shit like that. It's just, you're going to miss some things. So when we're talking about this ideology and the things that they are saying, like he's saying, like, yo, we can't really put a pin on what this really is. And then saying like, yo, because it was so mixed in how they were approaching things versus the civil rights movement and all of these different factions and shit. And it's like, oh, nah, it's pretty simple. But to simplify it that way to a lot of people who thinks it's to oversimplify it. And that's not what I'm doing. But you are going to see very, very clear through lines when it comes to this part of history, which was radical liberalism and that spectrum, and then of course conservatism. And when you automatically make conservatism synonymous with regression, synonymous with backward thinking, synonymous with every type of ism, and phobia that you can think of, you're going to walk away with like, well, how are they? Well, you had some black power groups that were capitalists. You also had ones that were more traditionalist, but then you also had feminist groups, and then you also had different coalitions between races and all this other stuff. So you start to overwhelm yourself and not understanding like, yo, when we're talking about boots on the ground results that you can live with, good or bad, that's what it boiled down to. Radical liberalism and conservative capitalism. That was the main choices. You can pick it all apart. There's discrepancies amongst the capitalists. There's discrepancies amongst the socialists and the communists. Nobody is going to be bar for bar in lockstep with each other, even if they are on the same side. So when he's talking about this, I appreciate him acknowledging the nuance of everything, but there is a way to simplify this without oversimplifying it and getting too far away from what was actually happening on the ground. And I'm here to tell you, based upon my studies, the hours and hours of study that I have, and I've read books that were pro-socialist, pro-communism from the black perspective. I've also seen it. I've read pro-capitalist, anti-socialist, anti-communism books from black authors as well. And I get my perspectives from my ancestors before I get it from anybody else, because we are our own people. We think for ourselves. We have the ability to convey thought for ourselves. And so how these things specifically affect black American communities, black American culture, black American economics, black American politics, I'm going to read from black American historians, black American authors, black American sociologists, etc., etc., and then control for their political leanings when they're writing this stuff. I'm Hotep. I'm making this video in not defense, but obviously I'm going to be speaking pro Hotep rhetoric throughout this entire production. He is clearly a leftist, so he's going to be speaking a lot more liberal leftist ideology and holding that down. And you can't be an objective person and say that nothing from the left has worked. That'll be, insane. You dig what I'm saying? But I equally challenge the other side to do that same thing and say like, yo, the civil rights bill, that's Republicans. Even though, what was that? The Republican president at the time was against it. But, the Republicans in Congress supported it. And every civil rights bill before then were Republican led. So when you're having these dichotomous battles of the wits, for me, I like to chill in the middle and drop bombs. Word to Spitter. Like, we stay in the middle and drop bombs. Like, I'm able to bang on the conservatives. I'm able to bang on the liberals. I'm able to bang on the Democrats. I'm able to bang on the Republicans. I'm able to do both because I am Black America first. Like, I am for the advancement in the best interest of my people first. So if the Republicans are going to get it done this election cycle, we vote in Republican. If the Democrats are going to get it done this election cycle, we vote in Democrat. See, motherfuckers forgot that you need to be using politics and stop letting politics use you. This goes back to my earlier sentiment when we were talking about Peter H. Clark and how he jumped from 3 different political parties in pursuit of getting what the fuck he wanted as a voter and as a citizen. You are not supposed to be married to these political ideologies like that. You should be able to pick up and drop them shits as they fit for the time and the context in which you live. That's how that shit go. There's going to be certain Democrat representatives for a particular district that are better than the Republicans that they're offering in that district. And if you're going to go even deeper and you want to be able to install the proper Republican, you as the people are now in charge with grooming them. You have to start creating them from young, from high school. and being like, yo, you're going to be congressman. You're going to be a congresswoman. Making sure they're going to the particular schools, getting in with the proper channels and the proper people, and being able to groom them and get them ready for local politics, work their career in local politics over those years, boost it up to state politics, and, go on from there. That's how you get this shit done. But if you don't want to go through all of that work, then now you need to be looking at different candidates from both sides of the aisle to see who actually is giving you the best deal for your vote and your support and your donations. That's how that's supposed to work. What the fuck are you going to do for me? And you have a lot of leftists that I've noticed talk down on this ideology. No, you don't need to be voting for your own interest. You need to be voting for the interest of everybody. Well, if everybody is voting for their own self-interest, then what the fuck is the problem? That is everybody's interest. If everybody is voting for their own self-interest, everybody's interest is being considered. Now, if your interest is somehow going to, if your ideology is somehow, I'm going to sacrifice my own interests for the interests of somebody else, and then you've effectively given away your fucking vote. That's how I look at it. You've given away your vote in hopes that it helps somebody else. And then when it doesn't help you, you either blame people for not voting more on the same way you did, or the other side for blocking, stopping, impeding on your side's ability to progress. And this is what happens every election cycle, that the quote-unquote good guys lose. And it's insane. This is a stupid thing to think. You should be willing to sit down with a Republican president, a Democrat president, a Republican congressman, a Democrat congressman. That shit should not matter. The only things that should matter when you are dealing with politicians is what the fuck are they going to do? They work for you. Y'all got the pimping twisted. Y'all got this whole relationship twisted. They got y'all out here begging your fellow man and fellow woman to support them, and they should be begging you to support them. They hit you with a couple. That's where pandering even comes from. They hit you with a bunch of shit that make you feel good when you listen to it, and then don't do anything after they tell you. After you vote for them, after you donate to their campaign, after you do all of that shit and they leave you high and dry, they ain't got nothing for you. They sitting in their offices for the next 2 to 4, 6 years. And nothing happened to them. And I'm not talking about like violent, but there's no recalls. There's no holding feet to the fire. There's nothing. He's a Democrat, so we gonna vote for him. Idiot shit. That's idiot shit. That's not how smart people deal with politics. And I don't care what your granny did. I don't give a fuck what the white people are doing. I don't care. Logistically, that is not how you do this shit. You use these political parties for your interest, for your community self-interest. That's what you do this shit for. So continue, my brother.
And the political imagination that we probably need to have right now. Black radical movements are varied and complex, and even I am just now learning to understand them to a decent level. And yes, some aspects of black nationalism, Afrocentrism, and Pan-Africanism are attributed to weird guys like Umar Johnson and Hotep Jesus.
My boy, he keep coming up. He called my boy a weird person, so we already know. Now, not that we haven't peeped this from the very beginning. We've been watching this shit for half an hour. We actually been watching it for much longer than that, but I like to talk, so we getting balls off tonight. But yeah, son, like, I ain't gonna hold you. I'm not watching this whole thing. I'm not watching 2 hours of this, because there's going to be a lot of circular conversations happening. He gave a lot of great information in the beginning, and I appreciate that. Like, I'm talking all the way up until now. See, I don't have to agree with you to think that you gave great information. You gave the information from your perspective, and I'm able to ingest it and be able to come out with my own conclusions. That's all I ask of people. It's all I ask of people. So when it comes to that, no complaints there. I obviously disagree with much of what he's saying. First of all, being a radical, being a liberal radical of all things is just, I would never. Listen, some of the things is gully, right? There's certain things that I can respect. Excuse me. Willing to go toe to toe with the police. I fuck with that. Decriminalizing drugs. I'm with that. What else? What are some other ideals that I rock with? I rock with protest. Not for the shit that's been protested for the past like decade and whatnot, but like Occupy Wall Street could have been a thing, man. Occupy Wall Street really could have been something until it was co-opted, and you know we got back to real stupid ass debates over gender, sexuality, race, and shit like that. It was a time before, you know, Black Lives Matter and all of that other shit where it was literally the 99% versus the 1%, and we were making headway. You dig what I'm saying? And then that shit got splintered up, and now you know people zigged when they should have zagged. And again, responsibility and fault. The way you respond to the government dropped the psyop on Occupy Wall Street, broke that shit up, broke it all up, and y'all fell for the pimping. Y'all fell for the psyop once again. Played by numbers. So we're not gonna watch this whole thing tonight. I think we've talked enough. We're gonna rock out. I'll say until about 2:00. Yeah, I think that'll be enough. So yeah, let's continue.
Easy to point to the likes of Vosh and his ilk as the main culprits of this. What has to be engaged with is that I and folks like me over the last 15, 20 years are very much a part of that same problem. See, the truth is that people like Vosh are greatly just repeating things they've heard and witnessed from black social media circles on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. He probably only knows Umar Johnson because of a Breakfast Club interview that Umar Johnson did.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Umar. Are you totally against interracial relationships?
I am totally against it, and I want to make sure you understand why. Mm-hmm. It's not because... Cut it out, Envy. Cut it out, Envy.
Don't do that, Envy.
Why are more white people tearing into the sky? Are you really that scared?
What? Yo, son. Lorax gotta chill, bro. Listen. This is what Son was talking about, and this is why I find so funny. Son was he gave that fucking intro about code switching and being on code and all of this shit, and he got this fat white dude talking about Umar. See, this is the shit, man. This is the shit. Motherfuckers be talking about that on code shit. Like, no, listen, I'm not sitting here saying that black people are above reproach and white people can't talk about them. But you can't talk to me about it. No, you can't talk to me about it. I be having spaces on Twitter and shit. You dig what I'm saying? I be having spaces on Twitter and shit. I don't be talking to white people about black issues and black problems. If you want to learn some black history, I got you. You know what I'm saying? You want to learn about George Washington Carver. You want to learn about Samuel B. Fuller. You want to learn about Lunsford Lane, Junius G. Groves. You know what I'm saying? T. Thomas Fortune, Booker T. Washington. You know what I'm saying? Elizabeth Freeman. If you want to learn about that, like, I got you all day. But if you think I'm about to get to the nitty gritty of the problems and solutions of black America with you, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. The best. And I mean, the best scenario is you being a party to it. You being able to witness me talking to other black people about it. It's the best. And you know why, bro? Because I keep it consistent. I keep it consistent. I don't sit here in politic with black people about what the fuck white people should do. I don't even bring white people up in most times. 9 out of 10 spaces that I have that's centered around black people, I don't bring white people up because I don't like when people center white people in black American shit. We talking about black American history and you telling me about white people. Why, nigga? Why? Oh, black, white people are around slave masters and like, okay, cool. I get all of that. I'm not saying that white people don't exist. I'm talking about why the fuck are if we're having a conversation about black American advancement, black American history, the history of black American economics, the history of black American society and culture, that we're centering white people around it. Yo, because the white people did this, we did that. And because of racism, we did this. Because of discrimination, we built this. It's like, okay. I acknowledge that racism, discrimination, prejudice, oppression, and all of that shit that's happened in the historical context against black Americans. 100%. But to think that the number one motivator for all of the things that our ancestors built from, let's just say, we'll keep it in 100 years, 1865 to 1965. If you think the sole or main catalyst for that achievement, that progress, all of that building and creation was white people and not their own self-pride, not their own ambition, not their own determination, not their own will to live and thrive and survive and actually create something that they can leave their fucking kids with, you are out of your mind. And this is the reason why when you hear shit like white supremacy, that shit feel and sound good to you, because you've centered white people in your ethos your entire fucking life. You can't function in the ways that you need to function as it pertains to thinking about black American context. Not even just history, just the context of black America by itself. You can't. Because your entire life you have centered another people in your own narratives. You've centered other races in your narratives. You put yourself to the side. You became a side character in your own narratives. Because what's more important, the main character in these narratives is the racism, is the discrimination, is the oppression and all this other shit. That's what you've made the main character. Not letting that just be a part of the setting, be a part of the circumstances that they had to overcome, be a part of the narrative itself. You made that the narrative, and then what black people did in either response to it or what black people did, period, came secondary to all of the bad racism that was going down. And as somebody who studies black American history, I can promise you, I'm not lost on none of it. I'm not lost on none of it. I'm not lost on the fact that over 1/3 of lynchings, by white people on black people were just motherfuckers making shit up. Over 1/3 of them all. I understand that the government was literally taking black taxpayer money and funding and fueling white schools in the same district, in the same city, in the same state. I am fully aware of all of the different pieces of sabotage, fuckery, and all types of shit. I'm sure that I know about atrocities that you've never heard of. Like the flood in 1927 in Mississippi. You dig what I'm saying? So don't get me fucked up. I'm never going to absolve any wrongdoing by anybody. But to think that all of those atrocities, every single last one of those bad events are supposed to be the central events, the central pieces of information, and the central vehicle that we use to extrapolate our morals from. Whenever you read a fucking story, I don't give a fuck if it's Mother Goose or fucking Aesop. It does not matter what you read. There's a moral to the story. There is a cautionary tale. There is a message, a lesson that the story or the narrative is trying to teach you. And when you got a bunch of black Americans coming up, learning more about the bombing of Black Wall Street instead of the building and rebuilding of Black Wall Street, you automatically attribute you trying to do that shit. You trying to build or rebuild something is a fruitless endeavor because you've made the bombing the central piece of that story. It was built in 1908. Yada, yada, yada. It was burnt down in 1921. The end. What moral do you think you come away with when you hear a story like that? We once had something. We once created something. And then somebody else came by and destroyed it. The end. What are you going to... like? moral are you going to get from that story? You know what you get? You get the moral of, if we build it, they're just going to burn it down again. Because you did not center the months and years that it took to build Black Wall Street and all of these other different municipalities, towns, cities, and all of that throughout the country. You said fuck the industrialization of Black American advancement. Fuck all of the vocational skills that you know is required to create infrastructure in a particular town. Fuck all of the businesses. Fuck all of the residential and commercial property. Fuck all of the churches. Fuck the post offices that they built. Fuck the banks. Fuck every institution that these people built based upon them wanting this for their own society. Not racism, nigga. They wanted to live a fruitful life just like anybody else would. And they had skills to pay the bills, to be able to create and fortify the life that they want. Did they have governmental opposition? Absolutely. Did they have social opposition? Absolutely. Domestic terrorism? Absolutely. But if you think, yo, this is all my life is just waiting for the next shoe to drop, waiting for the next piece of legislation to fuck me over, waiting for this next white person to come bomb my house or come do some shit. That's not how people live. And you know how I know? It's because there's going to be people 100 years from now needing to be told this about the era that we lived in, because they going to hear about Trump. They're going to hear about the Republicans and MAGA and all of this other shit throughout the fucking 2020s and 2010s and shit like that, and being like, oh my God, it must have been fucking chaos every fucking day in 2024. It must have been chaos every fucking day. The entire fucking globe shut down in the year 2020. It must have been fucking chaos in the streets. And you lived through it, and you'll be able to tell them, like, yeah, it was crazy. Millions of people died. It was fucking shut down. The streets were shut down and all this other shit. You'll be able to tell them, but you know what you'll also tell them? One, how you made it through that shit, how you survived, and all of the things that you were able to create, manifest, or make happen during those tough times. You got people to this very day wishing that they were able to trade stocks during the pandemic, because people was making money hand over fist. Don't get me started on GameStop, and niggas turned stocks into memes because it was so crazy. Everybody was inside just fucking learning new skills and shit like that. Like, that is a part of it. It's devastating. It was a fucking pandemic. Bad things happen. But if you think that your story started and ended with that, I don't know what you expect. What do you expect out of life if everything that you're going to be, talking about or remembering is all of the fucked up shit that happened throughout life? I'm not ever saying, ignoring the bad shit, but to think that you need to highlight the bad shit over the good shit to try to pull at the heartstrings of the motherfucker listening to your story, that's pitiful. It's pathetic. And it's no different with Black American history. You can 100% acknowledge all of the racism, all of the prejudice, all of the oppression, all of the governmental opposition that Black Americans face, while still lauding and applauding your ancestors for building and creating and sustaining and maintaining things that we haven't even seen be replicated over 100 years later. We had Black-owned factories 100 years ago. We had more banks back 100 years ago than we do today. That's a fact. The industrialization of Black America slowed down to almost a screeching halt when we traded in vocational skills and industrial skills for consumer skills. We turned an entire generation of a bunch of producers who have been producing since slavery. We literally, everybody talks about, we built America and shit like that, but with what? With the skills, right? Agriculture, vocational, industrial, commercial skills. There was a time in this country where, it's so funny, motherfuckers was mad at Trump for saying this shit when it came to black jobs. Like, nigga, there were black jobs. And I know you keep thinking about fucking grueling field work and shit, but it's like, no, craftsmen, artisans, barbers, doctors, these were all black jobs. Historically, slave doctors were trusted and sought after more than white doctors. Not even black doctors, slave doctors. Meaning that they're caring for white people while still being in bondage. And because of their knowledge of herbs, because of their knowledge of homeopathy and their ability to heal with nature, they were still sought after. And what's so crazy, because black people or these black doctors understood that. So they started poisoning these white people. You got a fucking slave owner who's deathly sick, can be cured if he just fucking ate a couple dandelions, mixed it with some tea, got some fresh air, kept hydrated, be back in shape in no time. 2 weeks tops. 2 weeks tops. But instead, I'm about to put this arsenic in your soup. And you're dead now. So they had to pass a law. They had to pass a law. You know what I'm saying? What was that law? Because this video, I gave him a half an hour. He bored me. I ain't gonna hold you, G. Kind of bored me. It was the same old. I thought he had me in the beginning. He had me in the first half. But after he showed his leftist hand. And shout out to him. I'm not mad at him. It's just that when it comes to that content, it's like it's not too much. It's too much bad faith being sprinkled in with the objectivity. So banning slave doctors. Of course, the Washington Post. Let's see. So this is something. What was this that I read before? Yeah. So yeah, like I said, they were sought after, by white people and shit like that. So when it came down to this, and I forgot my point, so we're gonna wrap up this shit and move on, because he lost me with this shit. We spent way too much time on this guy right here, on this Zobo right here. We couldn't we couldn't do it. Could not do it, brother. Could not.
It is, isn't it? Guys, I bet you a ton of people of color in my audience knew who the fuck this guy was. Because he's irrelevant? No, he ain't. No, he's not. That video of him on the podcast from earlier this year we looked at had like 250,000 views. He's not irrelevant at all.
The Breakfast Club interview only happened because Umar Johnson, since the 2010s, had become incredibly popular. Not necessarily for being a serious political figure in black culture, but for this bombastic, cartoonish image that he created for social media content. And that content only became popular because it found an audience both of supporters who believed his message, but also from detractors who clowned him and made him into a meme.
Special guest in the building this morning.
A very polarizing figure.
Dr. Umar Johnson.
Dr. Umar Johnson. What's up, my brother?
Good morning,
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
But even that memification has a root in black cultural history from black spaces over the last 20, 30 years. And that criticism is both warranted and unwarranted.
While I was in school learning about, King and George Washington Carver and all that other stuff, I was at home being taught I was learning about Kwame at home. I was learning about, I didn't really want to hear it, but I was learning about Huey and all of them. So by the time I got home, I'm like, this is old news to me. For me, it was like a spectrum, right? Because it's like on one end, you got Damon Wayans, and then on the other end, you got like Huey Freeman, right? And for me growing up, they both Hoteps. Both of them.
It doesn't take much looking through black media to recognize that the image of the Hotep has been consistently mocked and rejected. But this mockery hasn't been without unforeseen consequences. Characters like Oswald Bates from In Living Color are memorable staples of this caricature, but he was not rare. There's Shazar from A Different World, who has some of the usual modern Hotep talking points.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So this has been my stream. We gonna wrap this shit up because I really thought I was gonna get a better bang for my buck. You know what I'm saying? And when I say buck, I mean my time. Time is money, right? So I thought I was gonna get a better bang for my time, and I didn't. We gave him 31 minutes and 24 seconds, and he pretty much been, ended up saying, not ended up because I didn't finish the stream. And I may, watch this shit on my own time just to see. But as far as reacting to it, I get what he's saying. I will say that. You dig what I'm saying? But first of all, he don't fuck with my mans. He don't fuck with Hotep Nation, so it ain't like I owe him any type of good grace or loyalty. Because if you don't fuck with Hotep Jesus, you don't fuck with me. You heard? It is what it is. But yeah, just the information. This is a good YouTube video for people who are leftist, leftist, black leftists, or people who are leftists in general who want to have their biases confirmed, but also have some of them challenged as well. The last point that Son was making, he was just talking about different, varying degrees of Hotep and shit like that. So maybe they'll get into how you may like this type of Hotep, but not that type of Hotep. And it's clear that he's talking about like the Umars and shit like that he don't like. He clearly don't like my mans, and so that means he don't like Hotep Nation and shit like that. So I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, way past immune to this type of shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm all the way cool with it. I don't, wish any ill will to Son. But this is just another misinformed, disinformed person who has not taken the time to really understand what it means to be a part of Hotep Nation, what it means to be Hotep and shit like that. And if he has, then it's up. It's up and it's stuck. Nah, I'm playing. But if he just, if he actually thought critically about it, saw what we are bringing, saw our material, and just didn't like it, didn't align with it, it's totally fine. Not everybody can't go. Everybody's not going to agree with me or my nation or the people inside of it. So I'm cool with that. Yeah, man. So more power to him. We're going to keep, doing what we do. Thank you for everybody that came through to the chat. This is going to be around the time that I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to do evening streams, just my schedule. I like that better. So I'm going to start doing it around like starting at 5 so we can rock into around this time so we can have enough hours. Y'all can leave, come back. I can, do my thing and all of that. If you have any type of content that you want me to talk about or history that we want to talk about, we're going to get into that. So shout out to everybody that was in the chat. My man Alchemist, appreciate you coming through. Shout out my girl Rook. Shout out to you. Thank you for coming through. My boy Taylor, T-Rex in the building. Shout out to my man Hotep Sage. And last but not least, Jason Lenz. I appreciate y'all coming through. Let people know about this stream. Let people know that I was up here talking for 3 hours, 56 minutes about, Hotep and all of the other stuff. We didn't really we got into some history throughout it. It was sprinkled through, but, we didn't even get into the history lessons and shit like that because this video I was intrigued. I was interested in it. And, unfortunately it didn't. Well, I'll say fortunately it was more nuanced than the regular anti-Hotep. And I would have to assume that that's due to him understanding the nuances, but also kept it general enough to keep us in these boxes to where there's really no difference between Hotep Jesus, President Hotep Doobs, and Dr. Umar. You know what I'm saying? So I get it, man. He's not the first. He won't be the last. It's all good. Like I said, I appreciate y'all tapping in to my stream. I'm going to be doing this a lot more often, and I'll be putting it on the timeline when I actually start and shit like that so y'all can tap in. So appreciate y'all, man. Hope y'all enjoyed it. And as always, Hotep and Bill.